What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
2 Shish. Chapter 31 King of Heroes, Gilgamesh. Under the watchful eyes of several people. The existence named Hercules looked up at the giant lion in front of him, a monster. In his legendary career, he also beheaded monsters. But that beast is much stronger than the one in front of him. Hydra Hydra, roar. The giant lion plunged down at a speed that was not proportional to its huge body. The lion fights the rabbit with all his strength. The huge strength and speed even brought gusts of wind to sweep. Boom. The dull crashing sound echoed in the arena. I saw Hercules raised one hand high, holding the giant lion's head up in the air, unable to move. The power of the feedback was so great that the ground under his feet even cracked. The impact of this image was huge. It's like an ant holding up the finger that the human pressed down. Is this still an archer? Usopp couldn't hold back, turned his head in disbelief and asked, how could I have practiced so much strength? Rather than saying that this is an archer, he is more willing to believe that this is a berserker. With the body of a human, he held up a beast as large as a hill with one hand. This is too exaggerated. As long as you think about it, there is a chance, Chen said indifferently. Kaido without squint. What you have to consider now is just which power to choose, and how to obtain that is my business. Usopp's mouth moved slightly, wanting to say something more. At this moment, a loud noise came from the arena, attracting his attention again. Bang! Big bricks fly, throw elephants with one hand. The huge giant lion beast was so abruptly thrown out by Hercules and smashed to the ground. With a slight movement of his hand, he took the large stone bow standing on the ground into his hand. Bow high, hook the strings, aim, pull, crack. The entire big bow was bent under this enormous force. A big arrow that didn't seem to exist was put on the string. Around Hercules, air waves swayed outward in circles. The power of terror is condensing, and a sense of death threat haunts the mind. Anyone who sees this action can't help but miss a beat. For fear that this arrow will come towards him. Roar. The giant lion beast threw itself on the ground and let out a loud roar, its claws constantly scratching on the ground. The beasts that should only know destruction and slaughter, actually showed their cowardice at this time. As if the prey had been locked. No matter the ends of the earth, there is no escape from this arrow hunt. Not to mention the monsters in the field. Even the 4 of Luffy in the audience had cold sweat oozing from their foreheads, staring at the big stone bow, as if they could see a flower. Since this big bow was drawn, a terrifying deterrent force has been formed. Any creature within the range will unconsciously feel a sense of imminent disaster. Hercules held a bow in one hand and a string in the other, and slowly spit out a few words, shoot 100 heads. Collapse. Hands loose, big arrows come out. A white line was drawn in the arena, the route the arrows traveled through. The terrifying air waves kept pushing away from both sides, setting off a cloud of dust. The giant lion monster couldn't resist even for a moment, and was pierced by an arrow. The terrifying power directly tore its huge body into 2 halves. Like those who get hit by a large caliber sniper rifle. No bullet holes will be left on the corpse. Because as early as the moment it was hit, it was already blown up. Boom. The speed of the arrow hit the ground behind the beast without any reduction in speed. Falling like a comet. On the ground, large cracks spread like spider webs in all directions. This is the legendary demigod, the noble phantasm of the great hero Hercules, the true face of shooting 100 heads. In the 5th Holy Grail War, because it is a berserker job. Therefore, Hercules at that time could not use this noble phantasm, and could only use another noble phantasm, the 12 Trials. Even in another world line, Shuru once projected this noble phantasm. It's just a template for the simulated berserker agency Hercules. To put it simply, it is empty with its form and without its spirit. And now, Hercules, who was shaped by Chen as an archer, undoubtedly showed the power of shooting 100 heads. This is the noble phantasm that once shot the Hydra. With one arrow, not only the Warcraft died, but also the entire huge arena was affected. In the audience, the expressions of several people have been petrified. Too horrible. It's not worse than the previous god at all. Usopp's eyes were bigger than light bulbs, and his mouth couldn't close, which fully explained the word, stunned. How do you feel? Chen asked with a light smile, pausing the screen. For a time, the entire arena fell into a standstill. Usopp was about to answer, but was suddenly lost in thought. It's not that he thinks this power is not strong enough. On the contrary, he felt that the power was too strong. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like a power he can handle. This is not a problem of self-confidence, but a problem of the wrong style at all. This being named Hercules is said to be an archer, but apart from that arrow, what kind of archer is there? It's clearly better than the armored warrior, right? Didn't you see someone throw that beast out with one hand? This is completely different from the positioning of his sniper who shoots from a distance. Chen didn't take it seriously, just nodded and said, then the next one. Snapped. Fingers snapped. The entire arena is reset again. All the smoke, dust and stones in the sky disappeared, and the cracks all over the ground were smoothed out. Immediately afterwards, a figure standing in the center of the arena came into the eyes of several people. Blonde red eyes, golden armor. The King of Heroes, Gilgamesh. Chapter 32 The King's Treasure. The blonde youth stood quietly in the center of the arena. He folded his hands on his chest and closed his eyes slightly. The golden armor is gorgeous. Even if the picture is in a static state, a temperament can be seen in him, arrogance. In other words, it is a kind of arrogant and self-reliant spirit. The oldest king of mankind, a hero born between gods and men. King of heroes, Gilgamesh, Chen introduced indifferently, he is also one of the archer positions. In particular, his nickname is Jin Shining. I see. Nami stared at the golden armor and murmured, it's really shiny. Her eyes almost glowed golden. If it weren't for knowing that the person in the field might be very strong, everything in front of him was an illusion. Nami might be about to pounce. This, little thief cat, will never change his true nature as a financial fan. You know, she is not only a navigator on Luffy's ship, but also in charge of money. Your focus is also quite different. Chen couldn't help but complain. This group of people on Luffy's boat doesn't seem to have a normal brain circuit. Wait, Usopp asked suddenly, pointing to the blonde figure in the arena, is this also an archer? Yes, Chen nodded. But why doesn't he have a bow? Usopp looked puzzled. The first two came on stage, both with big bows that were taller than the others, and they had to catch the eye as much as possible. It is obvious that it is an archer. And this one named Gilgamesh has a golden armor all over his body. Not to mention bows and arrows, not even weapons. Quote. Chen didn't know how to answer this question for a while. Well, he smacked his mouth. His arrow is quite different. You will understand after seeing it. Compared with the first two, his style is more inclined to suppress firepower. Fire suppression. Hearing this word, Usopp's eyes lit up. Is he also a sniper with a musket? He is familiar with this. The two immortals in front of them have nothing to do with each other. One is a bow and arrow that shoots nuclear explosions, and the other is a berserker in the skin of an archer. Right now, this sniper feels a lot more cordial. Chen was slightly silent. You just think he is. Fire the countless noble phantasms in the king's treasure like bullets. If you have to say it, you can count as a sniper, right? Zoro on the side was keenly aware of something, and turned to look at Chen. He remembered the former Shinigami squad leader, Ichigenmaru. The Zanpakuto named Shinso left a deep impression on him. It's said to be a knife, but it's actually more like a gun. All in all, let's get started, said no more. Chen snapped his fingers. Snapped. Roar. With the sound of snapping fingers, a roar full of primitive destruction descended into the arena. A tyrannical and powerful breath spread out. The gigantic body almost covered the sky. His red eyes were full of anger. Gilgamesh stood there, frowning slightly. Miscellaneous, dare to bark in front of this king. Roar. Another loud roar. The beast doesn't care who he is, it opened its mouth and bit it on the spot. The smelly breath almost formed a strong wind. In the air, golden ripples suddenly swayed. Several golden chains quickly shot out from the void. Brush, brush, brush. The body of the giant lion beast was pierced with blood holes, and golden chains locked it in place. No matter how hard you struggle, it is always difficult to get rid of. All I could hear was the clinking of the chains. The lock of the sky. In the audience, Chen acted as a qualified commentator. One of the collections of the King of Heroes, it is said that even gods can't break free. The four people next to him were a little confused, but what does this have to do with the archer? Of course it has something to do with it. Chen looked strange. These collections are his arrows. In the field, isn't it sensible? Gilgamesh's body slowly lifted into the air, looking down at the monsters on the ground indifferently, but this is not the reason why you collided with this king. Sin is unforgivable, it should be punished. For a time, countless golden ripples swayed in the sky. The entire arena seemed to be shrouded in a golden glow. Roar. The struggle of the giant lion beast became more and more intense, and there was a faint trend of breaking free. The characteristic of the heavenly lock is precepts for God. In short, the higher the deity of the captured person, the hardness of the chain will also increase, and the harder it is to break free. It is a very small number of weapons against gods. But it is obvious that there is no so-called divinity in this monster at the moment. On the contrary, its magic is very high. Therefore, it is only natural that the lock of the sky cannot trap it. HMPH, miscellaneous, Gilgamesh raised his head slightly and waved his hand indifferently. Suddenly, pieces of different noble phantasms slowly protruded from the golden ripples in the sky. The light is shining. Each noble phantasm exudes a powerful aura that is unique to itself. If it's just one or two pieces, there won't be any special feeling. But when the heavenly noble phantasm appeared in front of him, anyone forgets to breathe for a moment. So shocking. Treasures all over the sky. Faintly, Usopp and others seemed to understand the meaning of Chen's words earlier. Is this the arrow of the King of Heroes? You call this heavenly noble phantasm an arrow? The king's treasure house, Chen said indifferently. Gilgamesh's treasure house is connected to his golden capital. It is said that it contains all the treasures in the world. Nami couldn't help rubbing his eyes, as if he couldn't believe the scene in front of him. In other words, his fighting method is to launch these noble phantasms as arrows. Too embarrassing. Who can learn this fighting style? Chapter 33. Please this king. Gilgamesh stood in the sky with a huge throne of kings under his feet. Vamana. A light boat of gold and emeralds that can soar in the sky. It can fly at high speed in defiance of the laws of physics by generating solar energy for driving it through a mercury-fueled solar crystal. This is not only his throne, but also his palace. Oh, Gilgamesh looked down with a hint of interest. How can a mere miscellaneous cultivator break free from the lock of heaven? It seems that this monster still has some skills. Ha ha ha, this king can't help but want to give you a little appreciation. A happy smile rose on Gilgamesh's face. Continue to please this king. While speaking, his raised hand waved down gently. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A series of noble phantasms swayed like a shooting star with a string of light tails falling rapidly downward. Durandal, possessing 3 miracles, a brilliant sword that will not drop in the slightest even if the owner's magic powers exhaust its sharpness. Desetan, a magic sword with a powerful curse that brings destruction. Broken Dawn, shines with the brilliance of heroic victory and the holy sword that represents his heroic life. Rainbow Sword, a spiral magic sword that stretches like a rainbow and destroys the opponent. The Thunder of Indra, Tuo Shaduo, the god of craftsmanship, is a magical instrument made from the bones of saints. All arrows fired, every noble phantasm in the sky has a different origin behind it. Without exception, they are all rare treasures. But at this moment, they all turned into arrows, in the hands of the hero king standing in the sky. It was mercilessly dropped like a bullet. Boom. The flames rolled backwards, the earth was torn apart, and the smoke and dust flew in the sky. The giant lion beast struggled to the death, roaring continuously, and finally slowly annihilated in this endless power. Ha 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 ha. In the sky, Gilgamesh looked up to the sky with a smile, and said with admiration, "It's a good performance, and it's not in vain for this king to give you such a gorgeous death. This is no longer a battle, but the catharsis of the most ancient hero king on his own might." The monster that was supposed to be extremely terrifying became a clown to please him. Even death is nothing but his reward. The gap is too big, even worse than the previous 2. No, it should be said that Gilgamesh's fighting style is too shocking. Snapped. Fingers snapped. The scene in the arena froze again, as if someone had pressed the pause button on the remote control. How do you feel? Lu Chen asked with a light smile. Very strong. Usopp nodded honestly. It's exaggerated. When he spoke, there was still shock in his eyes that never dissipated. But then, Usopp spread his hands helplessly, but this kind of fighting method is impossible to learn. I can't have these noble phantasms alone. How many people can afford this kind of fighting style of local tyrants? Even if you learn the abilities of others, where do you find so many exaggerated collections? Didn't I tell you? Lu Chen chuckled. After completing the training plan, you can obtain the target skills and accompanying items. Usopp's eyes slowly widened. That is to say, yes, you also have a chance to get these noble phantasms. Lu Chen nodded affirmatively, and then pondered. However, if you want to get these noble phantasms together, the difficulty of the training plan may be beyond the sky. The trainer's rules are actually pretty simple. It's just that the stronger the skills you want to acquire, the harder the training you need to go through. If the training goal is just the ability to shine, then there may be hope. But if you take this heavenly noble phantasm. At this point, Zoro on the side was deeply touched. Usopp, let's look at the next one. His training target is only Kaden Kyokutsu of Shikai. He was already asked to fight a large sea kings alone. Really choose the power of this, Gilgamesh. It was hard for him to imagine how difficult the training program would be. I see, Usopp scratched his head. In fact, in his opinion, everyone here is outrageously strong. At least before, he never dared to think that he could have such power. Luffy, who was standing on the far left, seemed to suddenly remember something. Wait. Zoro also chose this way. Ah, Zoro nodded, holding the knife. I have also watched a few powerful swordsmen fight before. For the 4 Gote 13 squad leaders, he was extremely impressed. It can be said that everyone is a top-level knife powerhouse. In other words, I'm the only one who didn't choose. Luffy's eyes widened and he pointed to himself. He finally realized something was wrong. Obviously, when Lu Chen customized training plans for Zoro and Usopp, he would let them choose this once. But how did you get to your place and customize it directly? It's not fair. Luffy raised his hand and shouted a little aggrievedly. I have to choose like this again. I said it. Lu Chen glanced at him calmly. You have a very terrifying potential in yourself, you just need to tap it out, and you don't need to customize other skills. If this kid's ability is really just the same rubber fruit on the surface, then he might really have to think of a goal. But this kid's fruit is in the form of Renren fruit, Phantom Beast, and Nika. Fruit of the Sun God. What else needs to be customized? There's no need for that at all. I guess so. Luffy scratched his hair. When he thought of Xifengmil village, Lu Chen also showed him his true power. Okay, let's see the last one. Lu Chen shook his head. Snapped. The fingers snapped again. In the arena, the last figure appeared. Chapter 34 Giants. Emma Yashuru. It was a man with black pupils and white hair in a red and black conceptual dress. Interestingly, he, like Gilgamesh just now, has no weapons in his hands. Moreover, his aura was much worse than the previous 3. If the first 3 are all on the stage, the aura spreads out, and they can catch everyone's attention. Then the aura of this black-eyed and white-haired man will undoubtedly be closer to ordinary people. Another unarmed one. This one won't be another one with the king's treasure house. Usopp's face became extremely tangled. Gilgamesh's fighting style, of course, he is very greedy. But he still has self-awareness. With so many treasures, how could it be so easy to obtain? If there is another one, he will probably have to choose from the previous two. After all, this is the last one. There are some similarities. Chen shook his head calmly, but it's very different. Compared with the other three in front, it doesn't seem to be very strong. Zoro frowned and asked aloud. He was judged by his aura alone. Every strong man has his own unique aura. As for the one in front of him, it is clear that the aura is not strong. The first three all have the blood of gods. Chen looked at the figure in the arena calmly. And he is a thoroughly human being. Giant, Yashuru. Speaking of this, Chen paused. A nameless heroic spirit who prayed for a miracle to save 500 human beings and became a heroic spirit as the price. He glanced at Usopp. Maybe it will suit you. Giant. Usopp swallowed subconsciously. Human. For a time, he seemed to think of a lot of things. A lot of things, once the word, Sha, is titled, the concept changes. Moreover, this Wei Gong giant has a huge difference from the previous three, the blood of the gods. Ishtar is the god of beauty and harvest. Hercules is a demigod hero. Gilgamesh is the oldest king of heroes with 2/3 of the blood of gods and a very high personality. These three feel too far out of reach. Being in 2 dimensions with Usopp. Between the two sides, there is an invisible and insurmountable moat. But this Wei Gong giant is a real human being. On the side, Zoro's eyes also became much more solemn, and he murmured in a low voice, with the body of a human, is it comparable to a god? Such existence should be respected in any world. Because their existence itself represents the possibility of human beings. Sounds amazing. Luffy also smiled at Usopp. Usopp, you can choose him. I think it's very interesting for such a person to join my pirate group. Bang. Nami stamped his fist on his head and said angrily, don't interfere with other people's choices, B******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** began to shake. Perhaps, she should have responded to Lu Chen's question at that time. First, let's see first, Usopp said nervously. This is his last option. It's normal to be nervous. Then, let's start. Lu Chen smiled lightly and snapped his fingers. Snapped. In an instant, the paused picture came alive. At the same time, a behemoth descended out of thin air. Roar. The tyrannical breath spread out, and the scarlet eyes stared at the prey in front of him. Giant lion monster. Huh. Wei Gong frowned, staring at the giant beast in front of him. Warcraft. Before he could react, the giant lion beast couldn't wait to act. Roar. The huge roar was full of deterrence, and the huge claws suddenly fell. Wei Gong's eyes were slightly condensed, and he stood on the spot and raised his right hand. Open. In the air, a flash of white light flashed, and 7 petals bloomed instantly, forming a shield in front of him. Bang! The huge claws hit the shield directly, and the dull crashing sound constantly echoed in the arena. Layers of air waves spread out in all directions. The sevenfold ring of blazing sky, a defensive noble phantasm, but he uses projection. Lu Chen competently explained to Luffy and the others, the 7 petals may seem fragile, but in fact, each of them is comparable to the ancient city walls, and the defense is amazing. This is the bronze shield with 7 layers of cowhide that Ajax used to block Hector's spear during the Trojan War. After sublimation becomes a concept weapon, its effect is even more powerful. Although in the 5th Holy Grail War, Cuchulainn stabbed through 6 layers with one shot, and also broke an arm for this. But at least, it was more than enough to block the attack of this monster. Jung. A crisp golden and iron symphony sounded in the arena. A spirally wound sword appeared in Emiya's hand. I saw him carrying the sword and rushed in the direction of the beast. Saw. The red and black figure swept across the field, and Senhan's sword light raised blood. Roar. The giant lion beast seemed to be provoked, and its movements became more violent. Claws, tails, mouths, almost every part, turned into weapons of its attack, constantly chasing this annoying little ant. Yes, in terms of body size, Emiya is indeed a small ant for it. It's a pity that this little ant is very agile, causing wounds to it from time to time, but it can't catch him. For a time, smoke and dust rose from the arena. In the audience, Usopp was almost dumbfounded. You call this an archer? It's almost like a swordsman. Lu Chen shrugged. Forgot to tell you, melee combat is Wei Gong's common method of testing, and bows and arrows are his trump cards, and he won't use them right from the start. Chapter 35 Fantasy Collapse. Boom, boom, boom. The giant lion beast has completely fallen into a frenzy, and has given up chasing this annoying little ant. It chose to attack the ground directly and indiscriminately. The huge limbs carry the terrifying giant force, constantly smashing to the ground. For a time, a large area of the ground was smashed, and ravines several meters deep crisscrossed. Saw. The sound of breaking the air sounded, and Wei Gong, dressed in a red and black dress, broke through the smoke and flew back. The spiral long sword was inserted on the ground to relieve its force, and it retreated directly to the other side of the arena, pulling out a long ravine. There is no way for him to retreat. The terrain is too difficult to move, and his attack is very limited. This Warcraft chose the best way to deal with it. Call. Wei Gong stood up from the ground with a calm look, and let out a sigh of relief. Then he stretched out his hand and took out a black bow directly from the void. Unlike the previous ones, his bow is nameless. Exactly. All of his noble phantasms are manifested by his abilities. Only this bow is his own. Have you finally taken out your bow? In the audience, Usopp's eyes became excited. It seems that he is really an archer. The close combat just now made him tremble with fear. Sure enough, this long-range combat method is more suitable for him. But the next moment, Usopp was stunned again. I saw Emiya directly put the long spiral sword in his hand on the bowstring. Crack. Pull the string. Pull back. The entire black bow was pulled out directly by a full moon. He actually used the long spiral sword in his hand as an arrow. This sword is called the pseudo-spiral sword, Chen explained, holding his hands together. The prototype is actually another noble phantasm, the rainbow sword. As he spoke, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It's interesting that the rainbow sword is included in Gilgamesh's king's treasure house. Not only was it recorded, it was also used in the previous battle. Right now, in the field, Emiya seemed to have completed the aiming. The giant lion monster in the distance also noticed the location of this little ant, dragging its huge body and running towards him. Collapse. The full bowstring was loosened, quivering in the air and making a sound. The spiral long sword turned into a blood-colored rainbow, dragging a magnificent track in midair. Wei Gong's eyes were calm, and 4 words slowly spit out from his mouth. Fantasy collapsed. Boom. The spiral long sword ran through the body of the giant lion beast without any suspense. And in an instant, through self-destruction, a violent explosion was completed. The air waves spread out round by round, and the smoke and dust filled the air again. The giant lion monster-like body was forcibly lifted off. The power of terror is unmistakable. But at the same time, a noble phantasm-level long sword was destroyed just like that. In other words, this power is obtained by destroying the noble phantasm. Fantasy collapse, one of Emiya's trump cards, Chen said lightly. He will fire the noble phantasm as an arrow, then destroy the projected noble phantasm, and instantly increase its power by exploding it. In short, in Emiya's hands, these treasures became disposable items. It's too extravagant. Nami's eyes widened, seeming to criticize such behavior. That is a treasure, so mercilessly destroyed. This is too badass. Even the golden glittering Gilgamesh from before, they just threw the noble phantasm out. Will it be taken back in the end? This guy is good, even more exaggerated, he directly uses the noble phantasm as a consumable. Even Usopp on the side had a complicated face. Is it this way of fighting again? He really can't learn this kind of local tyrant's fighting style. Don't worry, Chen smiled and waved his hand. This guy's ability can reproject the noble phantasm, so he won't feel distressed at all. I see. Nami seemed relieved. I thought this guy was such a prodigal. Think about it too. If you really destroy the noble phantasm, then no amount of noble phantasm will be enough to consume, right? Having experienced so many battles in a lifetime, even if only one noble phantasm is consumed in a battle, the accumulated amount must be exaggerated. Roar. Suddenly, a furious roar came from the smoke. The terrifying sound waves even swept the dust all over the sky. The huge shadow stood up again, showing its powerful vitality to the audience. Although it has many scars on its body, even the arrow just now exploded a huge gap in its abdomen, and blood continued to drip. However, the tyrannical and arrogant aura of demon beasts is still high. Emiya also frowned slightly. What a twisted life force. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand again, and a new weapon emerged in his hand. This is a blood-colored magic sword. Red Plains Hound. Smell the smell of blood, and just swing the magic sword that can deliver the most accurate slash to the opponent. Every time you let the opponent take a blow, the blade will flow into the blood, and it will emit a red brilliance. This sword is no weaker than the pseudo-spiral sword just now. But Emiya was obviously not going to use it for close combat. Crack. The black bow was drawn full again, and the blood-colored longsword was used as an arrow. Collapse. The bowstring rebounded, a huge force was exerted, and the blood sword was quickly thrown out. The blood-colored Changhong pierced through the air and once again penetrated the body of the giant lion beast. Boom. The explosion sounded. Fantasy collapsed. A powerful noble phantasm was destroyed again. This time, one of Warcraft's forelimbs was blown off. Even if the vitality is as tenacious as it, some can't stand up. Standing in the same place, Wei Gong took a deep breath, but then slowly exhaled. Who? The next moment, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he chanted a mantra softly from his mouth. I am the bone of the sword I hold, and the sword is born of heaven. Quote. Chapter 36 Inherent Enchantment, Infinite Sword System. In the arena, a whispered incantation echoed. I am the bone of the sword I hold, and the sword is born of heaven. Steel is the body, and fire is the blood. The blood is like iron, and the heart is like glass. The number of handmade swords has reached more than 1,000, and it has been undefeated in countless battlefields. Not known by death, never defeated once, not known by life, never gained a confidant. Have suffered to create many weapons. It often stands on the top of Joncho, and is alone in victory. However, nothing is left. Therefore, this life is meaningless. Therefore, as I pray, infinite sword system. Then this body is destined to be born for the sword. The appearance of the entire arena changed drastically. It seems that a new world is covering this place. It's an ironworks-like world full of weapons, flames, and giant gears. Mind the world. Inherent enchantment. Infinite sword system. In the audience, Chen's expression also became serious, rewriting reality into a mental image world as Emiya's real trump card. For a while, there was exceptional silence in the audience. Zoro stared at the swords and weapons on the ground in the arena, and some were speechless. In the sky, the huge gears slowly rotated, and the smoke of flames filled the air. As if it was just a slight sniff, you could smell the aura that was unique to the battlefield. That is the breath tempered by iron and fire together. Mind image, world, Zoro stared deeply at the scene in the arena, and was a little lost for a while. Perhaps, this power is also very suitable for him. The wreckage of swords and weapons all over the ground seemed to be telling a story of one after another. Gulu, Usopp swallowed subconsciously, his voice trembling slightly. This kind of power, can I learn it too? So shocking. The impact of this scene is probably even more shocking than the golden ripples in the sky that Gilgamesh had before. Cover the real world with your own mental image of the world. The entire area is shrouded in a domain that belongs to itself. Obviously only a mortal body, but this kind of ability performance is even more fascinating than the three previous gods. Of course, Chen nodded calmly. The unlimited sword system is actually not so much a noble phantasm of Emiya, but a great magic called inherent enchantment. It's very strong, but it's just a skill in the end, and the difficulty of the training plan will not be too exaggerated. He glanced at Usopp indifferently. At least, it's much simpler than that Jin Shining. Don't look at the endless sword weapons in Infinite Sword System, but these are projections. There is no comparison with the exaggerated number of real goods of Jin Shining. Of course, the acquisition of this skill is by no means easy. But Usopp can, like Zoro, go step by step, targeting basic abilities first. Wait, Nami suddenly raised his hand and asked, with a surprising voice, if you learn this skill, will you be able to create a lot of noble phantasms and sell them? Chen's face stiffened slightly. Seeing such a grand and shocking scene, what can you think of, is this? JPG. Even Zoro on the side couldn't stand it any longer. Those are just projections, not real noble phantasms. Oh, Nami looked back in disappointment. Roar. At this moment, the roar of the giant lion monster came from the barrier. But this time the roar was not only tyranny, they seemed to hear a hint of panic. Everyone's faces were a little weird. A beast that has lost its mind actually makes a panic sound. But when you think about it, it's not difficult to understand. When you were fighting, you suddenly changed the venue and arrived at the enemy's home court. Can you not panic? Collapse. The trembling sound of the bowstring resounded again. This time, Emiya's attack did not stop. Pieces of noble phantasm seemed to be free of money, and flew towards his hands from all directions, constantly turning into arrows and meteors slicing through the air. Forelimbs, hind legs, trunk, head. One after another lethal wounds exploded on the huge body of the giant lion beast. A blood flower bloomed in the air. Roar, roar. The demon beast struggled constantly, wanting to counterattack on the verge of death. Unfortunately, its mobility has been completely destroyed. To meet its ending, only in this gorgeous funeral, gradually annihilate. Boom. A burst of violent explosions continued to resound. The noble phantasm turned into a flying rainbow and penetrated the flesh and blood, and then was directly destroyed by the phantom collapse, bursting with terrifying power. It's not just a fight anymore, it's more like a gorgeous drama. It's just that the other side of the drama, the giant lion monster, is performing at the expense of life. Soon, the voice faded away, and Emiya also stopped drawing the bow. It has ended. Wherever you enter, the ground is devastated. The ground in the enchantment is full of ferocious ravines and cracks. As for the beast, even the body could not be found, and it was completely annihilated. Snapped. The snap of fingers sounded, and the screen froze again. Only in the arena, the picture of the world of iron and fire still hangs. It's over. Usopp came to his senses now. The battle just now was really too eye-catching. Not to mention him, even the three Zoro next to him were so absorbed that they even forgot to breathe. It's over. Chen nodded calmly. How is it? Have you made a choice? For a moment, Usopp's expression became complicated. A god, a demigod hero, one of the most ancient heroes. A human giant. This option, if you choose someone with obsessive-compulsive disorder, I am afraid that you will be entangled to death. Chapter 37 Training Plan, Improve Ammunition. Before Usopp could answer, the other three next to him had already started to give him advice. Nami, Usopp, if it really doesn't work, you can choose the golden glitter. When she said this, her eyes seemed to light up. To be precise, it was as if he saw the golden ripples and noble phantasms in the sky. Luffy grinned and said, Hey, Usopp, I actually think all four are pretty good, why don't we guess what? In fact, Luffy simply felt that no matter which of these people came to his boat, he would be very happy. After all, who can refuse such a good partner? Zoro on the side held the knife and closed his eyes slightly. You can make your own choice, but I suggest you consider the difficulty of training. Yes, this is the real problem. In fact, no matter which one you choose, Usopp is satisfied. Because they are all strong. But the problem is, this is just a choice, not giving you such an ability after you choose it. If you can't complete the training plan, it's no use picking anyone. After a brief silence, Usopp suddenly clenched his fists. I've decided. He turned his head and looked at Chen firmly. I choose the fourth one. The giant, Emiya Shuru. Not just because of the difficulty of training. There is also a very important point, identity. The first three are all related to the word, God. And between God and human, there is an inexplicable barrier. Emiyashuru is different. He is a pure human. An existence that is comparable to gods with the body of a human being. Such a character is obviously more cordial. In other words, it makes people feel closer. Weigong. Lu Chen nodded knowingly. Then, let's end it. Snapped. With the snap of their fingers, the eyes of everyone fell into darkness again. The illusion was shattered, and consciousness returned to the deck of the Sunshine Mary. System, customization, Usopp, training targets. Lu Chen pondered slightly. The magic power and magic of the giant Emiyashuru template. Skills such as infinite swordsmanship, it is impossible to locate the target from the beginning, it is too difficult. Open black lens bracket ding. A training plan has been drawn up. Close black lens bracket. Training object. Usopp. Close black lens bracket. Training goal. To obtain the magic power and magic of the giant Emiyashuru template. Close black lens bracket. Training plan. Improve the ammunition used by the slingshot and use it to cause damage to users of Marine 6 Styles Iron Body. Close black lens bracket. Quote. Looking at this training plan, Lu Chen fell into silence. Because it is difficult for him to judge the difficulty of the plan. The so-called Marine 6 Styles Iron Body is a very broad range. Take a chestnut. A member of a CP9 organization used Iron Body widely when Enies Lobby and Luffy were due to fight. But in the end, they were all broken. But if it's someone else, like old Garp. I am afraid that in the whole sea, there are not many who can break his defense. That is, the difficulty changes with the goal. At this time, the few people on the deck gradually came back to their senses after going through a lot of twists and turns. The ship was still sailing on the sea, and the sun was shining brightly on the sparkling sea. It was obvious that they had been in the illusion for so long. But in reality, time seems to have stopped. Woo. Luffy wanted to say something immediately. However, after leaving the illusion, his mouth was sealed with tape again, and he could only make a whimper of unknown meaning. Well, those people are really good. Nami glanced thoughtfully at Usopp's long nose. No matter how much I imagine, I can't imagine that this guy can be so powerful. Hey, you're too much. Usopp almost jumped from the deck. I'm the great Captain Usopp. Okay. Zoro interrupted them calmly. Let's listen to Lu Chen's training plan first. No matter how much you talk about it now, it's no use if you can't complete the training. Like himself, swimming behind the boat every day in order to complete his training to get Zanpakuto. Oh yes, Usopp looked at Lu Chen, refreshed, and hurriedly asked, what's my training plan? All he can think about now is what he saw in the fantasy world. A world made of iron and fire. And the two chanted incantations. I am the bone of the sword I hold, and my body is made by the sword. Single quote. Steel is the body, and fire is the blood. The blood is like iron, and the heart is like glass. Single quote. For a time, Usopp only felt that he was about to ignite. The sub-power in my heart is expanding. So now, he can't wait to complete the so-called training plan, transform into a giant, and become the brave sea warrior he longs for. Training plan. Lu Chen paused and said the plan. It's actually not that hard. Improve your ammo to the point where you can injure a person casting Marine 6 Styles Iron Body. Huh, Usopp froze. Improve the ammo. How to improve? What is Marine 6 Styles and Iron Body? Zoro on the side also looked over. They are obviously also very interested in this training plan. Lu Chen thought for a while, then said, forget it, it's hard for me to describe it to you, so let's let you see it with your own eyes. As he spoke, a scarlet blood rose in his eyes. Huge pupil power poured out, covering the deck. This time, there is no need to create a fantasy world. After all, it's just a demonstration of Marine 6 Styles, and it can be solved by creating an illusion. Chapter 38 Joseph, Johnny. Going merry, on deck. Under the watchful eyes of Luffy and the others, a tall figure wearing a marine cloak stepped out of thin air. This is a marine with an ordinary face. The so-called Marine 6 Styles refers to a physical technique developed by Marine. Lu Chen said lightly. It includes 6 moves. Shave, Iron Body, Paper Arts, Moonwalk, Tempest Kick, and Finger Pistol. It is a physical technique that surpasses the limits of human physical ability. Each type has a different purpose, and in general, it is very useful. As for Iron Body, it's a defensive technique. The principle is to accelerate blood flow and speed up muscle movement. The body has the hardness of steel, even bullets and swords can't break through. Speaking of which, I don't know when Crow's side will be able to complete the training, and he will also be able to directly possess the 6 style skills. Then, Lu Chen snapped his fingers lightly. Marine, who was standing on the deck, suddenly moved, pulsing the muscles all over his body with force. For a time, his body surface became muscular and his skin was angular. How about it? Do you want to try it? Lu Chen's mouth curled into an interesting smile, looking at a few people. The strength of Iron Body varies from person to person. The natural effects of Iron Body cast by different people vary greatly. The marine he created is of a relatively high standard. At least, it is much higher than the level of those people in CP9. I'm coming. Zoro's eyes lit up, and immediately took a step forward with the knife. It can be said that the few battles just now have made him see blood boiling. At this time, a battle is needed to vent the fighting spirit. After a while, when a series of sparks bloomed in the air, Zoro stood on Marine's arm with a long knife in hand, his muscular arm colliding with the blade. This is. Zoro's pupils shrank slightly, feeling his hands go numb. How can this be cut to the body of a person? This is clearly cut to a piece of steel. Even the sound of slashing is a crisp sound of gold and iron symphony. Dang, dang, dang. Zoro gritted his teeth, the long knife in his hand slashed down again, and a series of sparks burst out in the air. Usopp, who was not far away, was stunned. This is what is called Iron Body. He wants to use a slingshot to hurt this monster-level defense. Do not make jokes. He even felt that even bullets couldn't penetrate this guy's skin. It's amazing. Nami's eyes widened too. Woo, woo. Luffy next to him whimpered loudly while waving his fists. This time Nami understood what he meant and said, Zoro, come on. Just when a few people watched Zoro fight the nameless marine. Bang, bang. Two sounds came from the side of the hull. Those were two iron claw barbs hanging on the side of Going Merry. Who? Usopp yelled, there are enemies. Oh, Chen raised his eyebrows, snapped his fingers, and removed the illusion. Zoro slashed the air with a knife, and put the long knife back into its sheath, looking over in annoyance. Someone actually attacked at this time and disturbed his battle. Pirates. A figure climbed onto the boat along the hook, holding a knife in his hand, shouting, prepare to die. This is a man with the word, "See," embroidered on his face and wearing sunglasses. Bang! An outstretched fist suddenly flew from a distance and slammed into his face. The next moment, the man was directly smashed onto the deck, staring at the sky indifferently. How could? Luffy retracted his fist and looked at the man curiously. Woo woo woo. It can be said that this person interprets the word, vegetable, vividly. Extremely poor. Makes you wonder if he's just here to be funny. At this moment, Zoro, who was not far away, suddenly opened his eyes. Huh. Aren't you Johnny? Ah, the man in sunglasses on the ground also looked over. So, big brother Zoro. The man in sunglasses quickly got up from the deck and looked at Zoro in disbelief. Brother Zoro, why are you on this pirate ship? Zoro was also confused. How could it be you, and Joseph? Didn't you stay with you? It's good not to mention it. Johnny's face suddenly collapsed when the name Joseph was mentioned. Big brother. Joseph Johnny had tears in his eyes. Come with me. He walked in the direction of the hook, and below, a small boat was parked next to Going Merry, with a figure lying on it. On the face of the figure, the word, thief, is embroidered. And the word, see, embroidered on Johnny's face to form, pirate. Could it be? Zoro looked down with shock in his eyes. When he was about to say the word, dead, Johnny added with a sad face, Joseph, he's sick. For a while, the surroundings of the deck became extremely silent. As if only crows were, quack, and flew by. Even Chen's eyes Kakuzu twitched slightly. He remembered that these two funny people were Zoro's younger brother when he was a bounty hunter. It's just that I didn't expect that these two people could be amused to such an extent that they can be called funny people, right? After all, they are just two dragon rolls, and the impression has long been blurred. After a while, Joseph had been put on the deck of Going Merry, gasping for breath. His eyes were white, his face was pale, and he looked very ill indeed. This guy Joseph, who was fine the other day, suddenly became like this, and he has been in a coma several times in the middle. Johnny knelt beside him and said in a sobbing voice, the teeth are falling out and the wound is bleeding. I don't know what to do anymore. This. Zoro also rubbed his head with a headache. It's scurvy. Nami on the side couldn't help it, and said angrily, do you all have no sailing knowledge? Bad, scurvy. Johnny was stunned. Come and find the citrus, Nami said, covering her face. It will heal in a few days. Great. Johnny was so excited that he almost jumped up from the deck. Chapter 39 See Restaurant Barati, Iron Fist. Going Merry, conference room. At the small wooden table, except for Joseph, who was resting on the bed, everyone else was here. This tells us that nutrition must be considered during long-term voyages, Usopp said with his head in his hands, looking at the ceiling. Scurvy is just one example. But it must be noticed. Chen leaned on the back of the chair and smiled lightly. What we need is a chef, an excellent chef who knows what food should be cooked at sea. Woo. Luffy on the side nodded in agreement. See chef. I know where it is. Johnny stroked his chin confidently. Also, there is news of the eagle-eyed man that big brother Zoro has been looking for. Having said that, Zoro's eyes sharpened sharply. Johnny pointed to the outside. See restaurant, Barati. Very good. Nami stood up. Just go there. ... After half a day, East Blue, Samba's Sea. A huge fish-shaped ship is quietly moored above the sea. There are fish-shaped head statues at both ends of the boat. It looks like a big fish with an exaggerated body. Wow, so big. Usopp looked away. Woo. Luffy was also excited and rushed to the bow. Idiot. That's not a fish, it's a big boat. Zoro's forehead was tic-tac-toe, and he grabbed Luffy's collar. Let's go over there. Nami smiled and waved. Just then, there was a sound of water flowing. Beside Going Merry, another boat also approached side by side. See, marine warship. Johnny's eyes suddenly widened. Hey, Zoro's eyes narrowed. I met some nasty guys. This place, even marine will come. Nami rubbed his temples with a headache. On the deck of the warship, a pink-haired man in a marine suit also looked over. It's a pirate flag I've never seen before, the pink-haired marine shouted, pressing one hand on the fence. I'm Captain Naval Headquarters, Iron Fist Hobody. Who is your captain? Sign up. On his fist, he wears a finger tiger made of steel. Presumably this is also the origin of his title, Iron Fist. Woo. Luffy waved, trying to speak. At this moment, a lazy voice came from the side. Let me talk to him. Chen pulled Luffy away, walked slowly to the bow, and looked at each other with interest. You said, you are, Iron Fist. Ah, yes, pink-haired Marine smiled proudly. I am Iron Fist Hobody. I didn't expect that my reputation is already so big. Even unknown pirates like you know me. As he said that, he also thought he was very handsome and ruffled his hair. Ha 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 ha. On the deck, Chen seemed to have heard a particularly funny joke, covering his stomach and laughing loudly. You, what are you laughing at? Pink-haired Marine couldn't react for a while, staring blankly at the black-clothed youth across from him. Is his name funny? How could he not know? Or, did you say something weird? For a time, he had some doubts about life. Ha. Chen seemed to have finally had enough of laughing, raised his head to look at him, and said meaningfully, I also know an Iron Fist Marine, but his name is not Hobody. Nami on the side raised his eyebrows. You still know Marine. Compared to her surprise, the opposite Hobody was even more confused. Huh, he began to retort almost subconsciously. What a joke. Iron Fist is the title of this Uncle Hobody, how can other Marines have it? As he said that, he also raised his hand and showed the Iron Fist. Did you see it? This is the symbol of Iron Fist. In fact, it is not wrong to say that, he is indeed a veritable Iron Fist. Chen pondered slightly, and then asked, are you serious? Huh, Hobody was a little confused. I'm starting to wonder if you are the captain of Naval Headquarters. Chen rubbed his chin. How can a Headquarters Marine not know who is the real Iron Fist? The one used by Marine as a card, has suppressed countless pirates for decades. Blocked the Rock's pirates' attack. Pushed One Piece Roger into a corner several times. A legend in Marine saga. The old man's name, the Marine from the headquarters in front of him doesn't know. Huh, what are you talking about? Hobody was confused. This uncle is a veritable Captain Naval Headquarters, and so is Iron Fist Hobody. Haha, interesting, Chen chuckled. In his eyes, a touch of scarlet flashed suddenly. Pupil power poured out, and a fantasy has been quietly generated. Boom. The next moment, a tall figure descended from the sky and landed beside Hobody on the deck of the warship. Who? Hobody turned his head almost instantly, looking flustered. It's the old man. The voice full of vigor came, the tall body cast a black shadow, and the cloak of justice squeaked in the sea breeze. As soon as he appeared on the stage, the powerful aura spread out, attracting the attention of everyone in the audience. Ka. Hobody, as if petrified, called out the name in a trembling voice, Garp Vice Admiral. So you know the old man. The white-haired old man gave him a strange look. Then don't you know the old man's name? Name. Hobody forced an ugly smile. Aren't you a Marine hero? A-hole. Garp's voice suddenly took on anger. For a time, Hobody shrank into a ball and shivered. Go back to the old man and join the recruit training of the headquarters again. The white-haired old man roared, Old man, it's Garp the Fist. Chapter 40 Sanji. Ongoing Merry. Since the arrival of the old Marine with white hair, everyone found out that Luffy, who was very jumpy, actually retreated to the back without saying a word. As if afraid of being discovered. This guy, there are people who are afraid. Nami blinked in surprise. I thought he was not afraid of anything. Although the contact time is not particularly long. But along the way, what this guy Luffy has shown is that he is not afraid of heaven and earth. That's the Marine hero, Garp Vice Admiral. Zoro, who was beside him, held the knife and said solemnly. He is the protector of East Blue, a legend in Marine, and the nemesis of pirates. People in other places may be unfamiliar with Garp. But East Blue definitely won't. Because this Marine hero went out from East Blue and came back from time to time for a stroll. Otherwise, how could East Blue become the weakest sea? It's not because, every year, an old man with a certain ceiling level comes back. Of course, that's not to say there aren't any other reasons. For example, One Piece Roger came out of East Blue, so Marine takes it very seriously and so on. But among them, the old Garp is definitely the most important reason. Nami raised his eyebrows. The person who can make Luffy's guy scared is really powerful, but the question is, when did he appear? Speaking of this, Nami's expression became a little suspicious. This is unscientific, she has been looking at the warship opposite. The white-haired old man clearly appeared out of nowhere. Zoro pulled the corner of his mouth and smiled, looking at Chen's back at the bow of the boat. It should be the ghost of him. If it's the real Garp Vice Admiral, we should have been attacked, right? A Marine legend Vice Admiral will leave the pirates in front of him. Opposite. The self-proclaimed Iron Fist Hobody, at this time, his brain has fallen into a state of downtime, and he has completely lost his ability to think. I know. I'll go back now. He hurriedly saluted the white-haired old Marine, turned around and ran to give the order, turn the bow and go back to the headquarters. A soldier looked confused. Captain, you're not going to be in Barati. Idiot. What time is it? Hobody couldn't hold back, and shouted, hurry up and send orders. This is the order of Garp Vice Admiral. He never imagined that his little captain would attract the attention of Garp Vice Admiral. Not to mention ordering him to go back to the headquarters to participate in recruit training, even if he were to go directly from recruiting, he would have to abide by it. When Hobody finished his order and returned to the deck, he found that Garp Vice Admiral had disappeared. He looked around blankly. Where is this person? What about a Garp Vice Admiral my size just now? Why did it disappear in a blink of an eye? ... Crash. The sound of the current sounded, and a small canoe carried Luffy and the others from Going Merry to the front of the sea restaurant. It's really good. I can already smell the aroma of the food. Usopp closed his eyes slightly and said with a face full of enjoyment. Sailing at sea these days, all they can eat is dry food. This thing can only play a role in the stomach. At least the word food will never be associated with it. Luffy on the side was even more excited. Woo. Even if it was sealed with tape, it couldn't hide the tears that kept flowing from the corners of his mouth. Squeak. The door opened, and a group of people filed in. In the hall, there are already many tables of guests enjoying the food quietly. That's great. Nami quickly found a table and brought everyone over to sit down. As soon as he was seated, a gentleman's elegant voice came from the side. This beautiful princess, please allow me to order for you. They saw a blonde man in a tie and a straight black suit with a cigarette in his mouth standing at their dining table, his slightly curled eyebrows quite recognizable. The blonde man smiled, as if only Nami was in his eyes. Introduce myself, I'm the sous chef of this sea restaurant, Sanji. Because of the shortage of waiters, now it's up to me to order for you in person. Hey, Usopp put his hands on the table in dissatisfaction. You should take a look at us. We are customers too. This guy is dressed like a chef. It's clearly here to pick up girls. Oh, Sanji responded nonchalantly, what do you want, the guest? Why is the attitude completely different? Usopp's forehead burst into a tic-tac-toe blue vein. At this time, Nami also reacted and said with a smile, Sanji, you are really handsome. Where, Sanji's attitude immediately became a very gentleman, and he bowed down. Miss, what do you want to eat? My craftsmanship is recognized as excellent. Your food here looks delicious, but... Nami looked troubled. For me, it seems a little too expensive. Sanji immediately Kaido. Of course you are free. Saying that, he didn't forget to turn his head to look at Usopp. You guys have to pay for it. Thank you. Nami smiled like a little fox. After finishing the order, Sanji left. Usopp couldn't help but complain. What the hell is going on with the chef in this restaurant? Woo. Luffy whimpered inexplicably. Zoro held the knife and calmly translated. He said, these are not important. Hurry up to eat, and then find the chef. Their purpose here is not to enjoy the food, but to find a sea cook for his own ship. Chapter 41 Store Rules. Akin the Ghost. Woo. At the dinner table, Luffy whimpered in admiration as he feasted. It's really delicious. I've never eaten such a delicious dish, Usopp said with a tangled face, but the attitude of the curly-haired chef is very bad. Chen also calmly finished the seafood soup in front of him and wiped the corner of his mouth. Very good, I think this chef is very suitable for our conditions. Eating dry food these days is enough for him. Sanji's craftsmanship really has nothing to say. Otherwise, just invite that guy, Zoro said while eating the food. At this moment, an attentive voice came again. Beautiful princess, are you satisfied with this meal? Sanji was standing beside Nami with a cigarette in his mouth, all smiles on his face. Ah, I'm very satisfied, Nami smiled at Kaido, not forgetting to wink at him. That can't be better. Sanji's eyes were almost filled with peach hearts. It's an honor to be able to serve you. However, when he turned to look at Usopp and others, his expression returned to calm. Remember to check out. Usopp's eyes widened. This double standard treatment difference is too big. Could it be that only Nami is the guest, and they are not? Squeak. At this time, the door of the restaurant on the sea was pushed open again, and the guests turned their heads to look over. This time, a thin man with a striped turban came in. His face was pale, with dark circles under his eyes, and he walked staggeringly, looking very bad. Please give me something to eat. His voice was weak, and he seemed to speak very reluctantly. And as soon as he finished speaking, he stumbled and fell to his knees on the ground, as if the lamp had run out of oil and dried up. Sanji frowned and walked over. Hey, if you want to eat, just order. The weak Kaido of the hooded man. I have no money. Not far away, another tall chef was displeased. If you don't have money, don't come to the restaurant, B*****************. Have a few words, Patty. Sanji glanced at him, then walked back to the kitchen without saying a word. Why? The tall chef shouted dissatisfiedly. Only the paying customer is God, okay. His purpose is, the customer is God. Of course, it has to be a paying customer, and a customer who does not pay, even a dog. After a while, Sanji went back and forth with a plate of seafood fried rice in his hand. He walked up to the hooded man and put down the fried rice. Here, let's eat. Hey, Sanji, what are you doing? The tall chef roared with an ugly face. This guy is not going to pay. Sanji's expression was calm, and he lit a cigarette again. Patty, have you forgotten the rules of our sea restaurant? Well, the tall chef seemed to suddenly think of something, and his body froze. There are two rules for the restaurant Barati on the sea. The first is, no food waste. The second is to provide food for free to those who have not eaten at sea. Forget it, it's up to you. The tall chef snorted coldly and walked back to the kitchen. The hooded man looked at the plate of fried rice in front of him in a daze, and hesitated for a while. Eat it, Sanji breathed out a breath of white smoke. only by eating enough to survive can we see tomorrow's sun, right? I see. The hooded man stood up silently, picked up the fried rice, and devoured it. Tears fell while eating. Woo, it's so delicious, this is the most delicious thing I've ever eaten in my life. Sanji's mouth grinned, it's super delicious. Your name is Sanji, right? A voice sounded beside him. Huh, Sanji raised his brows and turned to look. The figure of a young man in black came into his eyes. It's you, what's the matter with the guest? Chen looked at him with great interest, and said without any hesitation. If I told you that the person you are saving now is Admiral Crick's subordinate, would you still give him food? That's right, this hooded man is the ghost agent. He is also the famous East Blue Overlord, and the first cadre under the command of Admiral Crick. For a moment, it wasn't just Sanji's expression that froze. The hooded man who was gobbling up beside him also stopped for a while, and then said solemnly, I am the ghost agent. Then, he hurriedly said, but don't worry, I'm not malicious. Sanji also waved his hand indifferently. In my eyes, he is just a poor victim. As that so, Chen nodded and said no more. By the way, Sanji, can you give me a cigarette? Huh, Sanji was taken aback by this jumping thought, but he still took out the cigarette case subconsciously. Here. Thanks. Chen took the cigarette, put it in his mouth, and spit fire style lightly. Then he walked back to the direction of the dining table and said lightly. In return, if you get into trouble, I can help you. Speaking of which, he hasn't smoked for a long time since crossing. It's also a bit of a nostalgia. Well, what a weirdo. Sanji put away the cigarette case with a blank face, and then shook his head a little funny. You know, their full name of Barati is not Sea Restaurant. It's the Sea Battle Restaurant. Every chef was originally a pirate. He even fights with other pirates when he has nothing to do. It is for this reason that many waiters are scared away. As a result, he was a sous chef and had to come out to entertain guests in person. How could such a restaurant be afraid of any trouble, and when would it get a customer to help? Chapter 42 I am a chef. On the sea, a giant sailboat. This behemoth is already full of scars at this time. To be precise, it is dilapidated. It was like a huge shipwreck, with all kinds of gaps and cracks all over it. What's more tragic is that on the deck of the giant ship lie pirates with torn clothes. Everyone seems to be on the verge of death. Boss, I found a place to eat, we are saved. Just then, a shout came. The ghost man agent climbed onto the giant ship and ran into the cabin excitedly. Oh, it's Agent. A tall figure in golden armor and a big cloak slowly turned his head and looked over. You said, you found food. Speaking of this, his spirit lifted slightly. From the Grand Line, hunted all the way back to East Blue, they haven't eaten for too long. They ran out of ammunition and food, and many of their men even starved to death. That's right, Agent supported his turban. Not far ahead, Barati, the restaurant on the sea, is there. Sea Restaurant. Crick's eyes lit up. Very good. You did a good job. Soon, the entire gigantic sailboat began to turn its bow and headed in the direction of Barati. Sea Restaurant, Barati. Ah, so full, Usopp rubbed his round belly with a look of contentment. So, this guy is too edible, right? Nami looked at Luffy next to him suspiciously. His stomach had swelled to the point of exaggeration, and he was slumped on the chair, unable to move. On the dining table in front of him, the plates were even more stacked. Chen smiled lightly and said, aren't you used to it yet? That's what this kid is like. I'm just wondering if we can afford this meal right now. Nami covered her forehead with one hand, only to feel a terrible headache. Barati's consumption is already high. This guy eats so much, how much do they have to spend? Hey, what is that? Suddenly a customer exclaimed. All the guests who were dining looked out the window. On the sea, a huge sailboat was breaking the current and heading in their direction. The sharp-eyed guest saw the pirate flag on the giant ship at a glance. That's Admiral Crick. Other customers also responded. How come, it's really the Creek Pirates. Didn't they already go to the Grand Line? Why did they suddenly appear here? It's over. That's Crick, we'll all be killed. For a time, all the customers in the restaurant were in a panic. Some people can't care about the food in front of them, and they run outside, trying to escape. Admiral Crick, who ran rampant in East Blue, was notorious. Fame alone can scare countless people. Hey, what's going on? A tall cook stuck his head out and looked out. Until an exclamation. The Creek Pirates are here. The chef reacted abruptly, and ran into the kitchen and shouted loudly, Head chef, something is wrong. In a panic, what a formality. A low roar came. The wooden prosthesis stepped firmly on the ground, and the two golden beards braided in the air trembled. The tall old man in the chef's uniform walked out of the kitchen calmly. At the same time, a group of chefs from the Sea Restaurant also panicked and walked out. Soon, squeak. The door of the restaurant was pushed open again, and two figures walked in. To be precise, it was the ghost man agent who walked in with the help of a tall man. For a time, everyone's eyes were fixed on the past. Chief Crick, Overlord of East Blue. However, the first sentence he uttered was shocking. Hold, sorry, please give me some water and food. I'll pay. I haven't eaten in a long time. Weak tone, breathless. After speaking, he fell straight to the ground. Bam! It was not until the dull collision sounded that everyone in the restaurant came back to their senses. The original serious atmosphere was vented. Ha 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 ha. Is this the leader Crick? It turned out to be like this. The tall chef Patty laughed with his hips on his back. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it looks like this guy has no strength to rob us. Even if it is the so-called East Blue Overlord, it is inevitable that there will be times like this. Is this still the legendary great pirate, Admiral Crick? That's right, at least for those who live in East Blue. Crick is the undisputed, big pirate. Just his own bounty is already as high as 17 million Bailey. There are still 50 ships and 5,000 pirates under his command. Although this group of people will not have any hockey, nor demon fruit power. But at least in the weakest sea of East Blue, they are a veritable overlord. It is a big pirate who can fight head-on with the Marine branch. Leader. The ghost agent gritted his teeth. Please give me some food, Crick pleaded on the ground, completely giving up his dignity. Snapped. A plate of fried rice was placed in front of him. Sanji is holding a cigarette. Eat it. Crick looked up in disbelief. Thank you, thank you. The next moment, he quickly picked up the fried rice in front of him and devoured it. Hey, Sanji. All the chefs around were stunned. What are you doing? Do you know who he is? That's Crick, the big villain who does all evil. They would be considered polite if they didn't notify Marine to arrest someone. How could they even give food aid? I know, Sanji said without changing his face, but I'm just a cook, and it's my job to feed the hungry. Chapter 43 The Real Trouble, Hawkeye. Under the nervous gaze of everyone in the restaurant, Crick finally finished his fried rice. Ah, it's delicious. He slowly put down the dinner plate, then suddenly his eyes changed, he jumped up from the ground, and suddenly he threw his arm towards Sanji. Sanji's pupils shrank slightly, but it was too late to dodge. Snapped. In midair, a hand stopped Crick's fist and grabbed it tightly. Let me tell you, you're going to be in trouble. A lazy voice rang in Sanji's ears. When he turned his head to look, at some point, Chen was already standing beside him. Who are you? Crick's eyes widened. Dare to stop Uncle Ben. While speaking, Crick gritted his teeth and tried to withdraw his fist. But the opponent's hand was as motionless as an iron hoop, grabbing him tightly. How is this possible? Crick's face gradually flushed, and he even exerted his strength to suckle. You know, in addition to this endless array of equipment, what he is most proud of is his own strange power. Even a 1-ton heavy gun can be wielded freely. This kind of terrifying strange power has shrunk today. My physique is not really a strong point, Chen said indifferently. However, it's not something that a little guy like you can compare to. Little b asterisk 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 d. Crick's face became ugly, as if he heard some kind of humiliation. Damn, this uncle is the legendary great pirate, Admiral Crick. Click. At his shoulders, the armor lifted suddenly, revealing the two muzzles below. It's a gun. Sanji's eyes changed. Get out of the way. Boom. Gunshots resounded. 2 large caliber bullets spun toward Chen. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the bullet passed through without causing any waves. Quote. Crick was stunned, with question marks written all over his face. What's the situation? What about the bullet I just fired? Obviously, he has already hit this person, but what about the wound? What about bloodline? The next moment, Chen's hand that grabbed him suddenly released. Boom thump. Crick stepped back again and again, with an unprecedented cautious expression. Who the hell are you? However, Chen didn't care about him at all, just turned his head to look at Sanji, and said lightly, give me another cigarette. Oh, Sanji took out the cigarette case in a daze. Chen was not polite, and took one out of it and lit it. Call. A smoke ring slowly drifted in the air. Damn it. Ignore this uncle. Crick gritted his teeth, his eyes were fierce, and he raised his arms suddenly. Since that's the case, let's have a taste of the MH5 poison gas bomb of my uncle, and let the whole ship be buried with you. The organ was opened, and the 2 black muzzles were aimed at the crowd. This is his secret weapon. Ordinary people will be poisoned to death even if they smell it. Tisk. Trouble. Chen suddenly looked up at him, his eyes were indifferent, and a seal formed in his hand. Call. Under Crick's gaze, a fire spewed out of Chen's mouth. The fire rose in the wind, and in just an instant, it turned into a huge fireball. Fire-style great fireball technique. What? Crick's pupils tightened suddenly, and before he had time to react, he was already affected. Boom. As if there was an explosion. The flames flickered away, and the smoke rolled back. The whole area of the restaurant's gate was blackened and broken. Crick, who was wearing a golden armor, was directly blown up and flew out. Thump. A large amount of water splashed, and Crick smashed into the sea like a boulder. The restaurant was quiet for a while. Everyone kept a petrified posture and stared blankly at this scene. The end. It's over. Someone murmured uncertainly. That leader Crick was just killed. So fast. What happened just now? I didn't even see it. When everyone came back to their senses, the entire restaurant fell into a commotion. Everyone looked in the direction of the door in shock. Even Sanji on the side couldn't help but ask. That guy just got wiped out. After all, it is also the legendary East Blue Overlord. Did you disappear in the blink of an eye? He's just a small problem. Chen's expression didn't change at all. He turned to look at the sea outside. The real trouble is coming now. In his perception, an aura as sharp as a knife was coming towards this side. What? Sanji frowned, a little confused. Come on, Lu Chen's eyes narrowed slightly, and a touch of scarlet rose in the depths of his pupils. On the sea in the distance, a small black spot slowly enlarged. No, it should be said that it is a small boat, which is constantly heading this way. The dim green candlelight reflected on the sea. The coffin-like boat exudes an ominous aura. A cross was inserted into the boat like a fixed sail. On the boat, there was only a figure with Erlang's legs crossed. A red patterned shirt with a cross knife hanging on his chest, and a black trench coat swaying naturally. Under the black top hat with white fluff, a pair of eyes as sharp as falcons were looking towards this side. It was as if they were looking at Lu Chen from a distance away. The terrifying aura, even if it is not close, already makes people feel like a light on the back. That is, Zoro followed Lu Chen's line of sight and noticed the man at first sight. The next moment, his expression became extremely solemn, and two words slowly spit out from his mouth: Hawkeye. The man he has been targeting since he went to sea. The legendary, the world's greatest swordsman. At the same time, a terrifying slash swept across the sea, separating countless seas. As if to announce his appearance. Chapter 44 The Frog at the Bottom of the Well. A huge knife light slashed across the sea. Boom. The giant sailboat of the Creek pirate was chopped up on the spot. The whole ship was torn apart, and debris scattered all over the sky. The monstrous waves swept up, and the waves on the sea were surging. The power of a knife. The swordsmen of the pirate world have a signature ability, that is, flying slash. Its principle is roughly similar to the sword chi in martial arts novels. Even a novice swordsman can cut through steel in the air. And top swordsmen like Hawkeye are even more exaggerated to ultimate. Cut the ship with a knife, but take it easy. A certain blonde old man who escaped from Impel Down can even cast a slash wave that cuts across a 1,000-meter sea. Who is that? Very scary. On the Balati boat, everyone had already walked out of the gate and stood on the deck watching this scene from a distance. Chef Zap folded his hands on his chest, his eyes solemn. One of the 7 warlords of the sea, the world's largest swordsman, Hawkeye, Dracul Mahawk. Jep stared at the coffin boat on the sea. Even on the Grand Line, he is a man at the top. Not far away, Lu Chen also chuckled. This is what I said before, the real trouble today. What Admiral Crick, he didn't care at all. Just like humans, they don't care about an ant under their feet. At most, when the ant tries to bite you, stick out a finger and press it to death. The real trouble in this sea area is undoubtedly the Hawkeye who chased the Creek pirates all the way. How to say this feeling? It was like a bait the size of an ant, but it attracted giant whales in the deep sea. It's hard to imagine that a top-level powerhouse on the Kunpro Grand Line would be so bored that he would float to a place like East Blue. I didn't expect to see him so soon. There was cold sweat oozing out of Zoro's forehead, and his face was nervous, but an abnormal smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The original agreement was reached today. Subconsciously, he put his hand on the hilt of the knife on his waist. Lu Chen on the side glanced at him. Do you want to challenge him? Ah, no doubt. Zoro took a firm step towards the wreckage of the giant ship. Behind him, Lu Chen's voice floated leisurely. It may die. No, it is likely to die. Zoro's footsteps paused, then continued to walk forward. Hey, if you don't go, it will be worse than death. The other side. The wreck of the giant ship. Mahawk also cast his eyes. He completely ignored the others and looked straight at the black-clothed youth on the deck. Why do people like you appear in East Blue? There was a rare confusion in his tone. A strong person is often very sensitive to the aura of another strong person. He immediately noticed something was wrong with the young man in black. A strange top powerhouse. And, in a place like East Blue. Lu Chen shrugged and said, I didn't expect that someone like you would come to East Blue. Just to pass the time, Mahawk said calmly. Really just to pass the time. He has no grievances with the Creek pirates, and he doesn't even know the so-called Creek. It's just pure boredom, so I chased it all the way and played cat and mouse. If you were serious, the Creek pirates would have been wiped out when the two sides met for the first time. There will be no chance of escaping back to East Blue. So, Mahawk suddenly turned his head and looked at the green algae-headed man on the wreckage of a wooden board not far away. What do you want to do? Zoro stopped, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. I went to sea to see you. What is the purpose? The strongest. Hey, Mahawk seemed to be interested. It's stupid. Come and fight with me. Zoro drew the long knife from his waist, his eyes sharpened. Saw. The sound of breaking through the air resounded. Mahawk's figure also appeared on the wreckage of the template, and he said calmly, can't you see the gap between us? Dare to draw a knife to me, should you say that you are brave or ignorant? He wasn't kidding. The gap between the two sides is as big as the difference between clouds and mud. If someone else came, I'm afraid he couldn't even draw a knife. It's because of my ambition. Zoro put on a 3-knife style starting style, and a promise. Mahawk gave him a deep look. Actually, it's not you who I want to fight. As he said that, he turned his gaze to the distant Balati deck. It's always a joy to meet a strange powerhouse. Zoro frowned and pondered. What you said, should be Lu Chen. Among the several people on the boat, the only one who made him completely invisible was Lu Chen. Not only that, the various abilities that Lu Chen has displayed before have confirmed his strength. Those two almost completely real illusions are even more memorable. Hey, what a pity. Zoro tightened the turban on his forehead, and a wild smile rose on his face. Today your opponent is me. If you want to fight against him, wait for the next time. Quote. Hawkeye was silent for a while, but he still took off the small cross on his chest. If that's the case, let's take some time to kill you first. This is a small knife. To be precise, a knife that is comparable to a nail clipper. Fighting with this kind of knife generally just makes people feel ridiculous. Hey, what do you mean? Zoro stared at the little nail clipper. Unfortunately, Mihawk shook his head. I don't have a smaller knife than this. There should be a limit to looking down on people. A trace of anger flashed in Zoro's eyes, and he flew forward sharply. Don't blame me if you die. Hawkeye raised his chin slightly. Frog at the bottom of the well, come and see. How big is the world? Chapter 45. The scars on the back are the shame of the swordsman. On the going merry in the distance, Johnny and Joseph were still shouting cheers. Big brother Zoro is invincible and impossible to lose. Brother, come on, you must win. On the wreckage of the plank, 3 cold beams flashed past. 3 swords, ghost slash. Ding. A crisp golden and iron symphony echoed in the air. At the intersection of the 3 long knives, a small nail clipper hit with precision, keeping the 3 knives in midair and unable to move. Impossible. Zoro's eyes slowly widened, as if seeing something incredible. He was a move no one could ever stop. It was broken by such a small toy knife. At this moment, the air seemed to be a little quieter. On the Balati deck in the distance, a group of people also stared in stunned eyes. No way. Zoro's knife was blocked like this. This is the power of the world's greatest swordsman. Zapu's face became even more solemn. This is not a level battle at all, there is no chance of winning. The man named Dracul Mihawk. It's not the kind of power that should appear in East Blue. Even in the Grand Line where the strong are like clouds, this man should be at the top. The distance of the world, how can it be so far away? Zoro's eyes were round and bloodshot. I didn't swing my sword to this day just to be teased by this kind of toy. The 3 knives drew violent slashing trajectories in the air. When, a series of sparks burst into the air. The symphony of gold and iron is endless. I want to become the strongest swordsman in the world, let my name resound throughout the heaven. Only in this way can the agreement between him and Zoina be completed. Bang! With a dull sound, Zoro fell to the ground. Hawkeye looked at him calmly. What are you carrying? At the end of the strong, what do you desire, weakling? There is absolutely no reason to lose. Zoro stood up from the ground with firm eyes, carried the 2 knives behind his back, and made an offensive gesture again. 3 swords, hunting. Time seems to stand still at this moment, and the world seems to be pale at this moment. Laugh. The knife pierced into the chest. Blood flowers bloom in the air. Big brother Zoro, Johnny, Joseph, Usopp and others in the distance all opened their eyes wide, watching this scene in disbelief. Mihawk also frowned slightly. Why don't you retreat? I don't know. Zoro froze in place. I just think that if I retire, then those goals and promises will all leave me. Yes, this is called defeat. Then I can't go back. Even if you die, better dead. What a powerful heart. Mihawk stepped back slightly, put away the nail clippers, and slowly pulled out the black knife behind his back. His eyes became serious. Long lost powerhouse, sign up, you are qualified to let me know your name. Roronoa Zoro. Zoro's eyes narrowed slightly, and he tried to raise the long knife again. Then, Mihawk solemnly raised his long sword. In order to show respect, I will use this world's strongest black sword knight to bury you. That's really, thank you. Zoro stood there, as if he had foreseen his end. Barati deck. All the spectators held their breath subconsciously. Is it necessary to do this? Sanji's eyes were complicated. Hey, Usopp's voice trembled. That guy Zoro, he won't die here. Woohoo. Luffy resisted the urge to help, and even held down Johnny and Joseph beside him. Chen shook his head slightly. This is the belief of swordsmen. In my opinion, those real swordsmen in this world are all one tendon. But don't worry, Zoro won't die. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth. With me here, I won't let him die. Besides, the Hawkeye guy may not kill him. On the wreckage of the plank, the 2 stood opposite each other. The 2 long knives in Zoro's hands began to spin and swing. 3 swords, profound truth, 3,000 worlds. Saw. Figures pass by. The screen seemed to freeze. Bang dang. The 2 knives in Zoro's hands shattered to the ground. In front of his chest, a long knife mark spread, and the blood flowed like a stream. I lost. He put away the words Hidao had bitten in his mouth, opened his arms, and waited for death. What are you doing? Hawkeye frowned slightly. The scar on the back, Zoro's mouth curled into a smile. It's a shame for a swordsman. It's amazing. Hawkeye nodded slightly in recognition, and then cut him off without hesitation. The next moment, blood spilled into the sky. Zoro's figure flew towards the sea. Zoro. Everyone who watched the battle shouted. Snapped. Just then, a hand stretched out of the air and caught Zoro. Uzumaki swayed in the air, and the figure in black slowly emerged from it. A rare smile appeared on Mihawk's face. It's you. Well, it's me. Chen gave it away and threw Zoro into the different space, then turned to look at Mihawk and said indifferently. Your goal, isn't it me from beginning to end? That's right, since Hawkeye came to this sea area and saw Chen, part of his attention has been on Chen. Even Zoro showed amazing kendo will. It just makes him optimistic about Zoro's potential and future. As for now, it is far from being an opponent. Exactly. Mihawk raised the black knife in his hand. I have completed my warm-up. Chapter 46 Everything is cut. Barati deck. Pat. A figure with a green algae head fell from the sky. Big brother Zoro. Johnny and Joseph rushed over to catch him. Cough cough. Blood dripped from the corners of Zoro's mouth, and there were 2 slash marks that could be seen deep in the bone on his chest. Even so, he still managed to look up at the sea in the distance. Lost, I'm really unwilling. Stop talking, big brother Zoro. Johnny fought back tears. Usopp on the side also quickly comforted. Hey, that's the world's largest swordsman, it's amazing that you can still be alive. Woo, Luffy was cheering him on as well. On the other hand, Nami looked at the distance with a calm expression, and said softly, the battle is not over yet. That's right, the battle isn't over yet. At this time, everyone reacted and looked up quickly. Including Zoro, regardless of the injury, leaned against the railing and stared at it. These 2 people, one is his goal to go to sea, and the other is a mystery that people can't see through his own ship. It can be said that both are existences that he wants to surpass. But unfortunately, he couldn't even match the strength of these 2. And this battle may allow him to see the true fighting strength of these 2. On the wreckage of the plank, 2 figures stood opposite each other. In the air, you can even faintly see tiny lightning jumps. This is a vision caused by the collision of the huge auras of the 2 sides. In Hawkeye's eyes, a long-lost war intention flame raged. The piercing sharp breath raged like a knife. The aura that belongs to the world's largest swordsman is fully displayed at this moment. Even the sea water on the side began to surging slightly, as if foreshadowing the next terrible battle. Be clear in advance, I'm not a swordsman. Chen calmly fell from the air and stepped on the wreckage of the plank. Hawkeye this guy, although every day longing for others to challenge him. But in the end, what he longed for was a duel between swordsmen. In other words, a kendo opponent who was strong enough to give him a competitive heart. Still that sentence, invincible, but also a kind of loneliness. The song is high and low, and the heights are cold. After sitting in the number 1 position in the world for a long time, he has never met a qualified challenger, and gradually lost his enthusiasm for fighting. It doesn't matter, Mihawk said calmly, you and I are already hostile. Whether it's a swordsman or not doesn't affect me waiting for a battle. That's right, his identity is 7 warlords of the sea. This is an institution set up by the world government and is on the same level as Marine. Killing pirates is his duty. One reason is enough. Then, the black knife in Mihawk's hand was raised high in the night. Let's start. The long knife swiped an amazing trajectory in the air. The gigantic green slash fell like a celestial sword. Boom. The water was split in half, and the waves rolled back into the sky. However, Chen, who was supposed to be beheaded, stood there and didn't move at all. Beneath the black hair, a pair of blood-red eyes were like the rising sun in the sky. Mihawk's eyes flashed slightly. What a weird ability. I wanted to say it before. Chen chuckled. I'm not a swordsman, and my ability is very restraining a swordsman. This battle is not fair to you. The hollow of Kamui is especially resistant to fighting with weapons such as swordsmen. Just like the clown buggy's chop chop fruit, it is also very restrained by swordsmen. Because, if you can't cut it, then everything is illusory. Fighting, there is no fairness at all, Mihawk said unconcernedly. Moreover, there is no incomprehensible ability. In his opinion, Chen's ability will always have flaws. This ability may really restrain him, but as long as a solution is found, the situation will be reversed. The black knife in his hand swung down again, slashing the air again and again. Chen maintained hollow, and began to seal in his hands, so fast that an afterimage was formed. Wei Wu Si Chen Zi Ugly Yin, the 7 seals were completed in an instant, and then he opened his mouth and blew it. Call. 3 huge fire dragons were suddenly spit out, raging through the air, claws and claws. Fire-style fire dragon fire bullet. Fire. Mihawk's mouth twitched. Interesting. He is now more and more interested in this man's abilities. The jet black hockey lingered up, and the blade was covered in high-grade armament colors. Cut. 3 fire dragons were cut off by 1 sword. The next moment, the surrounding space suddenly distorted, forming a hurricane. A new fire dragon spits out of Chen's mouth and rises against the storm. Fire-style flurry. Mihawk refused to come, as if seeing the high-temperature flames is nothing. The black knife in his hand slashed against the wind at night, and even the hurricane was cut off by him. Sure, Chen sighed. For monsters like you, the normal fire style simply won't work. In the eyes of a great swordsman of the level of Hawkeye, it is meaningless at all. Even if there is no entity, it is still correct. As the saying goes, the knife cuts the body and the heart cuts the soul. Everything in the world can be cut. When the sound of gold and iron reverberated in the air. A blue giant skeleton arm blocked Heidaoye in midair. Mihawk looked up and saw huge blue ribs and arms around the opponent's body. It was this bone arm that stopped his slash. Susanoo initial state. Standing under the blue skeleton, Chen sighed. Your character is really a headache. A rib, the same as Zoro's green algae head. And this guy is indeed right, there is no invincible ability in the world. Even Kamui's hollow has a time limit. To start again, it takes a few seconds to cool down. Hawkeye's uninterrupted slashes forced him to use Susanoo after all. Chapter 47 Kamui shows his power. Dengadang. Hawkeye's figure flew back in the air and landed in the distance of the wooden board, his eyes staring at the blue skeleton on the opposite side. The ability to materialize. He frowned slightly. Armed color. It was so hard that even his knife could not cut it open immediately. But this kind of power is obviously not a power he is familiar with. Huge eternal Mangekyo pupil power mixed with chakra kept pouring out. In midair, the huge skeleton frame is still being perfected. Meridians and flesh and blood spread on the skeleton. Chakra constructed the tunic, and the giant blue-colored long knife took shape in the air. It's not over yet. The entire Susanoo is constantly improving, and a layer of Wudengu's armor is generated out of thin air on the body surface. Wings, double knives. Valkyrie's posture reappears. The majestic power rolled down, swinging the surrounding air into layers of air waves. Susanoo complete body. When the heavy collision sound like a morning bell and a twilight drum suddenly resounded through the entire sea area. Ju Dao and He Dao Yi were at a stalemate, and Yue even blew the surrounding seawater away. Mihawk let out a long breath, his eyes solemn. The plank under his feet was cracked. This power is something he has only seen in his life. Dang, dang, dang. Terrifying collisions continue to occur on this sea. It was like two ancient beasts fighting for life and death. At the center of Susanoo, Chen, dressed in black, was adjusting the release of pupil power. In a pair of scarlet pupils, the strange patterns slowly rotate. The next moment, he glared at Mihawk. Kamui. Crack. The space seemed to freeze at this moment and turned into a piece of paper. The next moment, the piece of paper was crumpled again and was about to be thrown into the trash can of different time and space. In an instant, Mihawk's pupils tightened sharply. The long-lost thread of life and death hit him. In the nick of time, he forcibly broke out haki, twisting his body. Laugh. The space vision was smoothed out, and at the same time, blood spurted out from Mihawk's right shoulder. The flesh and blood in that place seemed to have been hollowed out abruptly. Did you hide? Chen raised his eyebrows slightly. As expected of you, Hawkeye. None of these top powerhouses standing on the ceiling of the sea are fuel-efficient lamps. The perception of crisis and killing intent is undoubtedly sharp and unreasonable. So at the moment when Kamui broke out, Hawkeye responded in time. Of course, even so, he didn't completely escape. The piece of flesh and blood on the shoulder that disappeared out of thin air is the best proof. It's a terrifying ability. Mihawk fell to the ground, stepped on the wooden board, his eyes were thoughtful, and his tone was admiring. It's extremely weird and difficult to prevent. Chen curled his lips, but it still didn't hit you completely. As he said that, in his eyes, the scarlet monster pattern lit up again. The bottomless pupil power poured out again. Susanoo, who was in the form of a god of war, also suddenly raised his swords and made an attacking stance. However, Mihawk stepped down, and the man went directly back to his coffin boat and sat down. That's it for today, I'm already enjoying this battle. Not only that, he also figured out some of the trump cards of this strange powerhouse. The purpose has been achieved. Chen was stunned for a moment, and almost didn't react. You said it's over. That's right, Mihawk's voice came from afar. You're not a swordsman anyway, and there is no need to share life and death hatred between you and me, right? Quote. Chen always felt that something was wrong. Obviously this guy came to find him, but if he said he would fight if he said no. I've been wounded, and I've paid the price, Mihawk chuckled. Besides, this place is not suitable for us to fight. Saying that, he pointed to Barati and going Mary not far away. If it goes down, it's all going to be destroyed. He was right. At this level of the powerhouse battle, it is absolutely devastating to the surrounding environment. It's like Aokiji and a Kainu fight. The entire punk hazard climate was permanently destroyed. The island will always be half frost and half magma. Tisk, Chen smacked his mouth and waved his hands impatiently. Let's go, let's go. He suddenly thought that if he really fought this guy, I'm afraid it would be a waste of a long time. Each of these pirate world's powerhouses is called immune to death's little powerhouse. Those with natural fruit abilities such as Akainu and Aokiji, whose physique is not their strong point, can play for 10 days and 10 nights. I don't know how long it will take to replace it with a strong man like Hawkeye. Just out of sight and out of mind. Mihawk didn't care about his attitude, leaning on the boat with Erlang's legs crossed. I heard the swordsman named Zoro say, your name is Chen, right? My name is Dracula Mihawk. Unfamiliar powerhouse, I am waiting for you at the Grand Line. Maybe at that time, we will have a chance to really decide the winner. Saying that, the coffin boat slowly drifted into the distance, turned into a small black spot, and gradually disappeared from sight. In midair, the blood in Chen's eyes slowly faded away, and the huge god of war giant also dissipated. Well, one or two are so troublesome. This has not yet come out of East Blue, and has already encountered 2 top-level monsters. After the Grand Line, how many are waiting for him? It really gives me a headache just thinking about it. Far away. After the coffin boat floated away, Mihawk stared at his right shoulder and murmured in a low voice, what a domineering ability. This piece of flesh and blood seemed to disappear out of thin air. There is no pain of being cut by a sharp weapon. It was not until this piece of flesh and blood disappeared that he began to feel the pain from here. Everything just happened in an instant. And there are no signs of it. Oh, a top powerhouse who has never left a reputation in the sea. Mihawk looked up slightly at the sky. Those Marines are busy again. Chapter 48 Target, Arlong. All blue. Sea restaurant, Barati. Yeah, I won. It's amazing. That's the legendary world's greatest swordsman, and he was defeated like that. Unbelievable. By the way, have you seen it? The Blue Warrior God, it's so cool. What happened just now? How did Hawkeye get injured? I didn't see it clearly. Anyway, Hawkeye was injured in an instant. The red-footed Jep almost didn't even have his eyeballs popping out. That eagle-eyed, actually loses. Among these people, he is the only one who truly understands Hawkeye's strength. As a big pirate who has really roamed the Grand Line, he knew very well how terrifying a strong man standing at the top of the sea would be. The #1 swordsman in the world represents more than just a title. What's more, it is the terrifying strength piled up under the throne. The one who can make Eagle Eyes lose. For a while, Jep's gaze towards the black-clothed youth became meaningful. Such a character should not appear in East Blue. His stage is destined to be that great route. Pat. The space twisted and rotated, and Lu Chen's figure appeared on the deck out of thin air. Lu Chen. Zoro stopped him immediately, with flames burning in his eyes. I need to become stronger. Next time, I don't want to lose again. The corner of Lu Chen's mouth raised a smile. Didn't you already get my training plan? You have worked hard during this time, maybe you can achieve it soon. Hearing this, Zoro's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he gritted his teeth. Yes, I will do it. At this moment, he thought of the battle he had seen in the fantasy world before. That squad leader named Kyoraku Shunsui, two Zanpakuto named Kaden Kyokutsu. Not to mention a large sea kings. Even if he is facing God, he will swing his sword without hesitation. Then, become stronger, until, the strongest. In the restaurant, thanks to the chefs, everyone ate a full meal again. Content, Usopp rubbed his stomach. Woo. Luffy slumped in the chair, his belly bulging bigger than a man. Only Zoro wasn't there, too badly injured and recuperating on going merry. What's the matter with you? Lu Chen looked at Nami with a cigarette from Sanji. While they were all feasting, Nami was the only one who was in a daze with a wanted notice. As if suddenly awakened, Nami put away the wanted notice in a panic, and forced a smile. It's nothing. Lu Chen raised his eyebrows and said lightly, that's Arlong. Nami's expression froze. How do you know? Murloc Arlong, the leader of the Dragon Pirates. The big pirate, with a bounty of up to 20 million Baileys. The true overlord of East Blue. At the same time, it is also the culprit who occupied her hometown of Shirobu village. It had become a nightmare that lingered in her heart. That kind of little guy, I don't know about it specifically. Lu Chen waved his hand calmly, his eyes became meaningful. It's just that he troubles you, doesn't he? Me, how could I? Nami stammered, and he started to falter. You don't need to hide it, Lu Chen shook his head and said lightly. We are members of a pirate group and partners. It is only a matter of course for you to solve him. In the original track, fearing that Luffy and others would be implicated, Nami even drove the going merry back to Shirobu village alone. In her opinion, Arlong's group is the most terrifying devil in the world. No one can stand against them. At this time, other people at the table also looked over. Miss Nami, let us know if you have any concerns. Johnny shouted, we will help you. Usopp also shrugged, isn't that right? Luffy agrees. Woohoo. You don't need to have any concerns, Lu Chen said with a smile, or do you think that guy will be stronger than Hawkeye? Everyone. Nami's eyes filled with tears. Soon, she recovered her emotions and clenched her fists full of energy. Okay. The next destination, Shiluobu village. Ready to go. After a while, everyone returned to going merry. Only Lu Chen was standing in front of Barati's gate, smoking a cigarette with Sanji. He looked at the curly eyebrows in the black suit next to him. Sanji, how are you? Do you want to go to the Grand Line with us? Sanji looked at him with complicated eyes. Before, the old man talked to me once, and I hope I will go with you. Maybe it was because of seeing the battle between Lu Chen and Hawkeye. Jep did an ideological work for Sanji. I hope Sanji can follow along and go to the Grand Line. Because he saw an unparalleled terrifying potential in this group of people. However, I still need a reason. Sanji slowly exhaled a breath of white smoke and looked up at the sky. After all, there is a guy here who I can't worry about. The reason? Lu Chen smiled lightly. You, like these guys on our ship, have a seemingly stupid dream. Luffy wants to be One Piece. Zoro wants to be the #1 swordsman in the world. Usopp wants to be a brave sea warrior. Nami wants to draw a map of the world. And you, he turned to Sanji, wanted to find, all blue, didn't you? The sea of legends that has all the ingredients of the 4 seas. Chapter 49 Sanji gets on board, power choice. You know, all blue. Sanji's eyes widened. I know, but just because you are like this, you can't find it there, Lu Chen said lightly. All blue must be located in the New World in the second half of the Grand Line. In the original track, Luffy's gang broke into Wano Kuni and haven't found it yet. It can be seen that its location is far away. Why? Sanji frowned. Because you need to go through countless obstacles to get to that place, Lu Chen said with a smile on the corner of his mouth. And you are not strong enough. This way, I don't know how many difficulties there will be. Marine, Shichibukai, 4 emperors, world government. Without enough strength, let alone the New World in the second half of the Grand Line. Even the paradise in the first half is not something that ordinary people can break through. You know, in this era of great pirates, every year, I don't know how many pirates sail out to sea and pour into the Grand Line. However, most of them have become dead bones in the sea. In this world where the weak eat the strong, only strength is the benchmark for everything. Not strong enough. Sanji was silent for a while. According to his character, he should have refuted at this time. But after watching the battle between the black-clothed youth and Hawkeye, he deeply felt his weakness. That is not a level of strength. The gap is too big, like the difference between clouds and mud. It's okay, I can help you become stronger. Chen slowly exhaled a smoke ring and said lightly. Introduce myself, I'm Chen, the trainer of the Straw Hat Pirates. As long as I train, everyone has the opportunity to become stronger. Sanji's eyes narrowed slightly, and he asked aloud, can you be strong enough to find all blue? Can. Sanji gritted his teeth. Okay. I'll go with you, Grand Line. The chef on your ship belongs to me. It's a deal. Chen smiled lightly. Let's go, they're already waiting. Sanji looked up. On the sea in front of Barati, Going Merry is mooring quietly. On the deck, Nami, Luffy, and others were all waving to him. Okay. Then let's go. Sanji turned to glance at the empty restaurant. Aren't you going to say hello to them? No need. The two walked forward. Suddenly, Zepp's deep voice came from behind. Sanji. Sanji stopped, but didn't look back. Don't catch a cold, Zepp said calmly. Sanji suddenly looked back and saw a boat full of cooks, all standing on the fence, watching them silently. Quote. He was speechless for a while. Tears welled up in his eyes, and for a moment, he seemed to think of many past events. On that deserted island, amidst the turbulent wind and rain, two people, one old and one small, who had no food, were extremely embarrassed. In the end, Zapu's foot, which was famous for the sea, was cut off by himself. And Sanji, also survived. Sanji turned sharply and fell to his knees, buried his head on the ground, and cried out with a whimper. Old Jep, you have been taking care of your B************** D for a long time. Your great kindness, I will never forget it in my life. After roaring, he lay on the ground and sobbed, his emotions uncontrollable. On the fence, a group of cooks burst into tears. Jep wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. Stinky boy, man, you should leave silently. On the sea, the wind is calm. The Golden Mary was constantly driving forward in the face of the sun. On the deck, everyone was leaning against different places, enjoying the sunbathing. Only two people are different. One is Zoro, who still has to work out despite the injury. The other is Usopp, who is trying his best to study ammunition, and now he has started adding black powder to it. Cough. Sanji coughed quietly. However, the crowd did not react at all. Especially Luffy, lying directly on the sheep's head in the bow of the boat, sleeping soundly. Cough. Sanji accentuated. This time, someone finally took care of him. Joseph, who was not far away, looked at him curiously. Brother Sanji, do you have a cold? Quote. The corners of Sanji's mouth twitched, and finally he couldn't hold back any longer. He got up and walked directly to Chen, who was lying on the side of the boat not far away. Cough. You said before that you can help me become stronger. On the side of the boat, Chen slowly opened his eyes, and said lazily, well, that's true. So how do I get stronger? Sanji asked directly. Originally, he might not have much motivation in this regard. But after seeing the battle between Chen and Hawkeye and listening to what Chen said, he still cares about his own strength. Being stronger is actually very broad. Chen said lightly. Through my training, you can obtain the target skills, but there is a premise that you complete the training plan. I'll get it done, Sanji said, turning to glance at Zoro and Usopp not far behind. Those two people are now working hard to complete the training. Oh yes, and that kid Luffy, his mouth has been covered with tape. In that case, Chen got up from the side of the boat. Then, as usual, like them, choose the power you want first. Choice. Sanji looked at him inexplicably. But when Chen's words came out, everyone else on the deck gathered around. Woo. Luffy raised his hand. Zoro translated. He wants to see too, and me. Nami smiled. If you don't mind, take us all with you. Big brother, what are you talking about? Like Sanji, there were Johnny and Joseph. Come on then, Chen smiled lightly. In the eyes, a strange blood rose, which outlined an alternative landscape. Chapter 50 Food Captives, Alu, Ants Fight Against Mountains. In the tumult of the world, everyone on the deck felt darkness in front of them. Next second, when they opened their eyes again, they were already in a huge arena auditorium. This is. Sanji stared blankly at the scene in front of him, his whole body was stiff, he turned around with his neck stuck inch by inch, and looked at the young man in black next to him. This is a fantasy world I built, Chen said calmly. After that, I'll let you watch a few battles and choose the power you want. Oh, I'm alive, and I can finally speak again. Luffy jumped up with excitement. Okay, so amazing. Johnny was shocked. Is this really a fantasy? Joseph on the side also touched the seat of the auditorium. This kind of touch is clearly real. All five senses feel exactly the same as reality. Can such a fantasy still be called a fantasy? To exaggerate, this can already be called the second world, right? In fact, when illusion is powerful to a certain extent, it is indeed possible to create a new world by mixing the fake with the real. For example, infinite Tsukuyomi in the world of Hokage, why not use illusion to create an ideal land? I just want to know what kind of strong players will appear today. Zoro held the knife and stared at the arena, and there seemed to be flames flashing in his eyes. He doesn't want to miss any battle of the strong. Because watching the shots of these powerhouses can always make him learn something different. Then let's start, Chen said lightly. Sanji, I've picked out 4 templates for you, all of which are strong from Otherworld. Look carefully and tell me your choice after reading it. Sanji was taken aback, before he had time to answer. Snapped. Fingers snapped loudly. In the arena, a tall figure appeared out of thin air. He has short, messy blue hair, 3 scars on his right face, and is wearing a large brown dress. Gourmet captures the world, one of the 4 Uranus of cuisine, a Lu. Chen introduced. Having a super sense of smell, I uphold the belief that you don't kill for the sake of eating. Once you kill, you must eat. As that's so, Sanji on the side stared at the figure. Such a belief is quite compatible with me. As a chef, he naturally would not be taboo about killing. But if it is not for the sake of eating and killing for no reason, it does not conform to his concept. Wait, you mean, he's a cook? Usopp's eyes widened. That's right, Chen nodded calmly. Can a cook really be a strong man? Haha, Chen chuckled lightly, the strong people in that world are all cooks. Food captures the world, a fantasy food world full of rare ingredients. Trees bearing delicious shrimp and crab meat all year round. The spring water that flows out of an endless stream of mellow brandy springs. The whole river is a river of fragrant chocolate. There is even a roast pig that roasts itself. In such a fantasy world, the word, chef, is not a derogatory term. On the contrary, any qualified chef has the ability to handle powerful fantasy ingredients. The blue-haired Lu in front of him is the best among them. Well, it's useless to say more, and let you see and see. Chen snapped his fingers again. Suddenly, the screen that had been suspended in the arena came alive. Boom. Shake the earth. A true behemoth fell from the sky. The weight alone made the ground sag a little. This is a woolly mammoth with a primal, wild air all over it. The most important thing is its size, which can be said to cover the sky. Manos Grande and giant lion monsters that have appeared in the fantasy world before, can only be regarded as small in front of it. In the audience, everyone was dumbfounded and looked up at the terrifying beast. Maybe it's not as spooky as Manos Grande, or as violent as the giant lion monster. But in terms of body shape, strength, vitality, etc., it is definitely the strongest. Gulu. Usopp swallowed subconsciously. This is too exaggerated. This is also an ingredient. The cigarette in Sanji's mouth was shaking slightly. Bigger than the giant sea kings. Zoro hugged the long knife in his arms and couldn't help thinking, can I cut it off? Nami also opened his mouth wide and let out an unconscious, wow. Only Luffy's opinion was different, and the corner of his mouth almost drooled. This guy, at least enough for me to eat for a month. In the arena, a Lu with blue hair raised his head and recognized the big guy in front of him at a glance. Oh. Is it actually a Liguru mammoth? Yan. With a loud elephant groan, the mammoth's huge feet suddenly lifted up and stepped down towards a Lu. The terrifying weight and strength are stacked together. Even the air seemed to be stomped on by this foot, and there was a terrifying scream. Thump. With one foot, it fell without any suspense, and stepped on the ground of the arena into a huge pit. Smoke rose from the sky. One after another cracks spread out like a spider web. Closing the coffin. Die. Usopp's face was dull. Should be dead, Nami on the side echoed. Unlikely to live, Sanji gave a little leeway. However, under their watch, the elephant feet of the behemoth were suddenly pushed up and kept moving upwards. Boom, boom, boom. In the sound of dull footsteps, the entire body of the giant mammoth moved backwards. A blue-haired figure slowly rose from under the elephant's feet, supporting the elephant's feet with both hands, as if lifting a barbell. Ants against mountains. Exaggeratedly, he actually resisted. Chapter 51 The Demon King's Sense of Smell, Terrifying Combat Skills. An ant walking with a giant mountain. Such a fantastic scene was so abruptly displayed in front of everyone's eyes. The expressions of the people in the audience were all petrified. Outrageous. It was enough to shock them to see this giant mammoth. Now there is something even more exaggerated. This scene is already bizarre and even brings a little drama. Boom. With a deafening sound, the colossus fell directly to the ground. Yan. An angry long moan resounded over the entire arena. Stop screaming. Lu wiped the dust off his face. I'll make you the most delicious food in the world. Obviously, the giant elephant does not seem to be a food. So its answer is, an elephant trunk that penetrates the sky. Bang. The ground cracked, and a deep ravine stood out on the ground. In the smoke and dust, Lu rushed out, with a fanatical smile on his face. It's my turn. Muscles are surging. The gourmet demon cells in the body are awakening. A breath of terror to ultimate suddenly descended on the field. Obviously just a small human being, but in turn crushed the giant elephant in the aura. I saw Lu standing on the ground, taking a light breath towards the giant elephant in front of him. In a trance, everyone seemed to see a real Asura demon king, breathing grinningly in midair. Smell. For a moment, the screen seemed to freeze. All the air in the arena seemed to be sucked away by this sniff. The world turns pale at this moment. The giant elephant fell to the ground without any movement, as if its soul had been sucked away. What? Nami asked blankly. He took a breath. Why didn't the giant elephant respond? I don't know either. Usopp on the side was confused. The Demon King's smell, Lu Chen explained dutifully. An application of super smell, which can sniff out the classification, gender, age, living environment, evolutionary path, DNA intelligence, taste preference, etc. of others or other creatures. Even the intelligence of the demon cells can't escape a sniff, and everything will be inhaled into the nose. It is not limited to organic matter such as animals and plants, but also inorganic matter such as landscapes. At the moment of being sniffed, the person being explored seems to have their soul taken away and turns into a pure white body. The people around were all dumbfounded. So many exaggerated effects can be derived from just a simple sniff. Is it so outrageous? And why does a chef have such heaven-defying skills? In the arena, a burst of materialized energy surged from Alu's body. He has completely mastered all the information about this mammoth. Next, it is only necessary to dismember it into ingredients like a diced ox. Yan. The Demon King's sense of smell ended, and the giant elephant also regained his senses. In the angry roar, it stood up from the ground again and rushed towards Alu, like a mountain overwhelmed. Huh. Alu let out a sigh of relief, his eyes slightly condensed. Devil fork. Terrifying energy poured into several forks, and waves of current surrounded. In the air, a scorching trajectory crossed, like an electromagnetic cannon bombardment. Boom. Huge blood holes were pierced through the body of the giant elephant. A lot of blood flowed down, almost converging into a small stream. The next moment, Alu approached the head of the giant elephant with a strange posture. The cells of the whole body seem to have become incomparably coordinated at this moment, and there is a trace of perfection and harmony in the strange movements. Bang. One punch hit. Caw caw caw. An agonizing sound of bone cracking echoed through the arena. The skull of the giant elephant was smashed by this fist. Ape martial arts, Lu Chen said lightly, the essence is to completely unify the thoughts of all cells in the body, so that all cells keep pace, and finally achieve the perfect use of their own power. And the nail punch, to focus the power on one point, to point to Aaroncar's technique. Hiss. A few people next to them took a deep breath. This is obviously a chef. But the fighting qualities displayed can make everyone present feel ashamed. This is not just as simple as strength or weakness. This blue-haired man used 100% of his power. And they, very powerful, may have only played 3 points. This is a natural limitation of human body structure, and it is also a kind of self-protection. There is no human being that can fully exert its own power. Obviously, the combat skills of the person in front of him are no longer in the category of human beings. Boom. Another dull sound that hit the soul resounded in the arena. On the head of the giant elephant, a large hole is particularly conspicuous. And this giant beast, which seems to come from ancient times, has completely lost its movement, and only its limbs are still twitching instinctively. It's done. Then, the next step is the autopsy. Alu clapped his hands with a smile on his face. Don't worry, I will perfectly dig out your most essential piece of gem meat. Snapped. Fingers snapped. When Alu was about to perform the dissection work, the picture in the entire arena froze again and entered a suspended state. How do you feel? Lu Chen asked with a light smile. It feels. Sanji was silent for a while, and then said seriously, it's very strong, it's exaggerated, and it's a chef, it seems to fit me well. Lu Chen shook his head slightly. Actually, the powerhouses in that world are all chefs, and this doesn't count as a reason that suits you. Of course, Lu Chen's mouth raised a smile. The fourth person I picked for you is not a chef, but I think he might be a good fit for you. Without him, Sanji is good at kicking. And that one is also very good at it. Chapter 52 Sani, the hair of the strong. All the powerhouses are all chefs. Sanji listened to this, thoughtfully. This kind of world, it's amazing. It's amazing, Lu Chen said with a light smile, but to be precise, they are food hunters. In that world, there are countless fantasy ingredients, and the strong rely on the food cells in the body to enhance their strength by enjoying food. Before the words were finished, the other people on the side were all excited. You can get stronger by eating food. Luffy's voice almost raised a few octaves. That's great too. I want it, I want it. This way of practice is simply. Zoro's mouth twitched slightly. It's enviable. Usopp's throat also subconsciously twitched. I'm changing my target now, is it too late? As Zoro said, this way of practice is too enviable. Others want to become stronger, exercise hard every day, fight to the death in battle, and finally break through. And the powerhouses in this world become stronger by enjoying the food. The gap between them is simply not clear in a few words. In contrast, everyone just thinks that the world is as beautiful as heaven. Sanji also took a deep breath. If that's the case, let's read all 4 first. Alright, Lu Chen nodded, then start the next one. Snapped. Fingers snapped loudly. The chaotic picture in the arena was suddenly reset. The cracks, blood, and giant elephants on the ground were all smoothed out one by one. At the same time, a new figure appeared in the arena. With a slender body and long-colored hair floating freely in the air, it is particularly conspicuous. Sani, Lu Chen said, one of the 4 Uranus of gourmet food, it has a super tactile sense. Is it the so-called food for Uranus again? Sanji raised his eyebrows. It seems that these 4 have a pivotal position in that world. Ah, yes, Lu Chen nodded slightly. However, among the 4 Uranus, one of the 4 Uranus was transferred from a food hunter to become a fortune teller, so I did not choose him as a template. As a compliment, he picked an additional target and placed it in 4th place. Of course, strictly speaking, these gourmet for Uranus's own job is not a chef. It's a food hunter, a full-time search and hunt for fantasy ingredients. But in fact, they also have their own life menu. So classifying them as chefs is not a big problem. Nami on the side suddenly commented, "By the way, this guy looks so sassy. It's okay to have an oddly colored long hair." The expression full of narcissism and contentment, even if the picture is still, can be seen at a glance. Well, Chen spread his hands and said, after all, Sanji's typical narcissistic personality. In short, these are not important, let's watch his battle. Saying that, a snap of fingers resounded. Snapped. In the arena, the screen that had been suspended was suddenly unblocked. Boom. The ground trembled. The mammoth that covered the sky once again descended on the arena. But the most interesting thing is not it. But in front of it, the man who looks smaller than an ant, Sanji. A long colored hair was getting longer and longer without knowing it. What's even weirder is that these hairs seem to have vitality, dancing constantly in midair, like Lion Majesty who chooses and devours people. Sanji looked up at the giant beast in front of him and raised his eyebrows. Liguru mammoth. As he spoke, there was a hint of disgust in his expression. It is obvious that he has the flesh of gems, but he is so ugly. Inside the Liguru mammoth, there will be a part that condenses the delicious essence of the whole body. That piece of meat was named the gem meat. It is one of the top fantasy ingredients. Sadly, for Sanji, he only likes beautiful things. The mammoth in front of him is obviously not beautiful. Yan. In the deafening sound of the elephant's groan, an elephant's foot slammed down. The sound of gas explosion suddenly exploded. Do you want to touch the beautiful me with your dirty hooves? Sanji's face turned cold. The next moment, the colored hair suddenly twisted upwards. Before the huge elephant's feet fell to the ground, it was firmly pushed into the air by these hairs. Can't move. Its visual effect is by no means weaker than the previous Alu walking with a giant elephant. The size gap between the two sides is exaggerated, but it also highlights how outrageous this scene is at the moment. It's just some hair, and the huge elephant's feet are tied up. And Sanji himself, even stood still and didn't move. In the audience, everyone stared blankly. As this still hair? I'm not as good as other people's hair. Some people even touched their hair subconsciously. It seems to hope that it can fight on its own. Chen's face was as usual, and he said lightly, this is Sanji's core ability. Each of his hair has a huge strength of more than 500 pounds, and the total is 250,000. For a while, the air seemed a little quiet. Everyone's eyes slowly widened, and the eyes that looked at the figure in the arena became incredible. Luffy snapped his fingers and counted. One hair is 500 pounds, 250,000, how much is it in total? He didn't understand. Nami on the side couldn't stand it anymore, and patted his hat pitifully. Forget it, you just need to know that this is a big number. As if to hide his emotions, Sanji took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. This is the ability of Uranus of Food 4. Only Usopp is the most real. His expression became very strange, like crying and laughing. I can't even hit a hair. Chapter 53 The Devil's Hair. The colorful hair danced in the air, like a lion majesty with its own vitality. In the next second, the long hair in the sky fluttered violently, directly throwing the huge elephant foot aside. Boom. The elephant's feet fell to the ground, and the earth collapsed. The terrifying weight reflects the horror of these hairs. Yan. The roar of the elephant was full of anger, and the huge mammoth threw out its trunk without any hesitation. It's really a headache for the little guy. Sanji rubbed his forehead, and the long hair behind him rose sharply, stabbing the giant beast from all directions. Lock. These hairs seemed to extend indefinitely, and each of them turned into tiny chains that were difficult to see with the naked eye. In just an instant, the entire area was blocked by these hundreds of thousands of hairs. Its sense of sight is somewhat similar to the spider silk scattered throughout the Pansy cave. The entire space is completely locked, including this gigantic mammoth beast. The elephant trunk that penetrated the sky and the earth stagnated in midair, and the majestic body was as motionless as a mountain. However, the movement of the giant elephant stopped, but Sanji did not stop. The long hair in the sky danced again, and finally, a ferocious monster was formed in the sky. A monster made of colorful hair. Roar. A furious roar emanated from the monster. An inexplicable and terrifying momentum spread out, and circles of air waves swayed, rolling the dust on the surrounding ground. Sanji looked at the giant elephant indifferently. Fist. Saw. The sound of breaking through the air resounded. The monster punched out, and the terrifying fist composed of thousands of hairs swung straight at the giant elephant. The air was stirred in an instant. Bam! Everyone only felt that they heard a heavy drumbeat, and even their hearts skipped a beat. A fist composed of hundreds of thousands of hairs with 500 jins of strength. No need to look, they seemed to be able to imagine the fate of the giant elephant. Bang! Bang! The fist hits the hammer down, as if a drummer is holding a heavy hammer and hitting a cowhide drum. Caw caw caw. The sound of bone cracking was incessant. There are no obvious wounds on the giant elephant's body, but what these fists destroy is its inner part. Yan. There was no anger in the elephant's groan, but instead let people hear a burst of grief. Push the golden mountain down the jade pillar. This behemoth finally fell to the ground. Like a mountain. Well, it's almost there, said Sanji with a satisfied look on his face. The next moment, he grinned. The monster made of hair in midair spread out abruptly, returning into long colorful hair that filled the sky. But unlike before, at this time, every strand of long hair is restless and ready to move. It seems like an old gluttonous eater who moves his index finger in the face of delicious food. Can't wait to eat it up. Go, Sanji waved gently. For a time, all the hair rioted. As if they were extremely hungry, they swept towards the giant mammoth on the opposite side. Soon, the entire body of the huge giant elephant was covered with colored hair. This scene makes people feel cold. It's like a giant whale in the sea with countless barnacles inhabiting it. These hairs are like blood-sucking leeches, thirsty for the flesh of a giant elephant. Plus, eating is super fast. In just a moment of effort, the bones of the giant elephant were exposed. Yan. The elephant groaned sadly, but unfortunately, it no longer had the strength to resist. On these long hair, there are food demons. It has been reduced to the devil's meal. The devil's hair, Chen said lightly in the audience, each of the long hair with appetite can eat countless creatures. It's terrifying. Nami stared blankly at this scene. If the previous Lu just made people feel that he was very strong, then this Sanji in front of him feels creepy. Just watching this scene in the arena made people subconsciously slow down their breathing, for fear of disturbing those terrifying hairs. Guru. Usopp swallowed subconsciously, feeling his mouth dry. Sanji's expression on the side also became solemn. Stop, this battle is over. Although the mammoth is still conscious, this scene is no longer a battle, but torture, or in other words, eating. These long hairs are biting flesh and blood from the living prey to feed their stomachs. That's right, Luffy echoed, even if you want to eat it, it should be cooked before you eat it. At least in his opinion, eating raw meat is a very wasteful behavior. In other words, in his concept, meat should be made into barbecue. Snapped. With the snap of his fingers, the picture in the arena fell into a stagnation. So, how do you feel? Chen looked at Sanji with a calm expression. This is undoubtedly a crushing battle. Even from the beginning to the end, Sanji stood there without moving a single step. The repressive power it displayed was even more terrifying than the previous Lu. Huh. Sanji let out a long breath of smoke, then slowly shook his head. Although he is very strong, this guy is not suitable for me. Compared to this man named Sanji, he would rather choose the previous Lu. Both are strong, but there is no doubt that Lu's character and beliefs are more in line with his heart. I think so too. Luffy on the side picked his nose. If I had to choose one to be on my boat, I would prefer the one before. Chen smiled lightly. If you say that, there's no problem. After all, when Sanji learns their abilities, they can be counted as their arrival on your ship. If that's the case, then the next one. Snapped. Fingers snapped. The chaotic scene in the arena was wiped out again, and time seemed to be reset. At the same time, a new figure also appeared in the field. Short dark red hair, stubborn muscles, and an extraordinarily fierce face. There was a long crack from the left mouth to the cheek, which made him look even more hideous. On the naked upper body, one after another hideous scars can be seen. Chapter 54 Zebra, the strongest. One of the gourmet for Uranus, Zebra, possesses super hearing. Chen's voice reached everyone's ears. At the same time, he is also known as the strongest of the four Uranus. The strongest. Sanji on the side was stunned, and subconsciously looked at the tall figure in the arena. He is more powerful than the two before. The image of this person looks like a terrifying ghost. Of the two in front, Lu looks like a decent fighter, while Sanji looks like a narcissistic playboy. And this one makes people think of two words at first glance, prisoner. Yes, prisoners. And he was the most vicious prisoner who had to deadlock his hands and feet. Yes, in terms of combat alone, Zebra is the strongest, Chen said lightly. The attack method is sound waves. He applied the sound to the ultimate, and he can even hear the sound of coins falling 10 kilometers away. Everyone in the audience was dumbfounded. 10 kilometers. Better than the previous two. Usopp scratched his head. That's too exaggerated. Just thinking about the scene where Sanji killed the giant elephant before. He was already starting to feel a little chill in his heart. 250,000 hairs. Each one is stronger than itself. It's hard to imagine anyone being better than that guy. His personality is very irritable and he likes to fight, Chen said with a light smile. His face is terrifying, but he treats the weak with unexpected kindness. That is to say, Nami concluded, this is a person who only likes to challenge the strong, and is even willing to help the weak, right? That's right, Chen nodded. Let's start, Zoro said suddenly and earnestly. I also want to see the power of the strongest. The so-called strongest must be the ultimate in some aspect. Okay, Chen understood, and snapped his fingers. Snapped. In the arena that had been suspended, the picture suddenly came to life. Boom. As if a giant mountain fell, the mammoth's huge body descended on the field. 4 feet on the ground, like 4 pillars of the sky. The original and wild atmosphere filled the entire arena. I thought it was something. Zebra scratched his head, his expression did not change in the slightest. It turned out to be a little guy. His expression was as if he was not seeing an ancient giant beast, but a kitten and a puppy. However, giant mammoths don't think of themselves as little ones. Yan. The sky-shattering chanting resounded through the sky. In the huge body, there is endless power surging. Oh, Zebra seemed to be intrigued, with a savage smile on the corner of his mouth. Does it have a louder voice than anyone else? The next moment, he took a deep breath, and all the muscles in his body swelled up. Then he opened his mouth, and a terrifying sound wave was emitted. In the air, sound waves seemed to be transformed into substance, forming layers of air waves. Boom! The terrifying loud noise appeared like thunder. As if hit by a rocket, a blood flower suddenly exploded on the giant elephant's body. In the huge gap, blood continued to flow out. Sound can also attack. Sonic rocket, Chen explained. The shock wave forms a huge impact, and the power is greater than that of a real rocket. Even if the iron wall is in front, it can break through. Everyone blinked blankly. The loud noise just now scared many people to their knees. It's just that no one thought that with such a sound, the power would be so maddening. In the arena, hey, Zebra's eyes seemed to have a flame of fighting intent awakening. Is this going to fail? Yan. In the roar of anger, the giant elephant responded with an elephant foot that penetrated the sky. The whole ground was trampled and cracked. The smoke and dust rose in the sky, and the cracks continued to spread. However, Zebra raised his right arm indifferently. A layer of sound waves that seemed to materialize formed on his arm. The next moment, he raised his arm and flew past the elephant's feet. Crack. In the sound of bone cracking, the elephant's foot as huge as a house was directly cut in half. Ultrasonic blast cutting machine, Chen continued. Using the frequency of ultrasonic vibrations more than 20,000 times per second to vibrate and cut objects, there is basically no object that cannot be cut. In the field, the battle is not over yet. But in fact, when the elephant's foot was cut off, there was no suspense of victory or defeat. Because the giant elephant has lost the ability to move. What a poor little fellow. Zebra stopped and stood there, seeming to ponder. Forget it, give you a treat. His expression became slightly serious, and his legs were deeply plunged into the ground. A majestic power rose up. Then he took a deep breath. Suck. Suddenly, the air from the entire arena seemed to flow into his nostrils. Layer upon layer of sound waves continuously gathered in his hands. In the end, a light ball emitting white fluorescence was formed. Around this ball of light, the air was trembling faintly, and a terrifyingly huge force was condensing in it. Then, what is that? Usopp's lips trembled, subconsciously staring at the ball of light. Even he can feel how terrifying that thing is. One of Zebra's stunts, Chen thought for a while, then said, sonic nuclear missile. People in this world, of course, do not know the meaning of this move name. But just like the name, the power of this move is very exaggerated. Go. Zebra tossed the ball of light. Suddenly, the ball of light descended over the giant elephant, and then suddenly exploded. Terrifying sound waves burst out, under the watchful eyes of the crowd. That giant elephant, which is as huge as a mountain, was gradually annihilated in the invisible sound waves. Chapter 55 The Blue Beast. Appear. Snapped. With the snap of fingers, the screen in the arena was suspended. Ended. Well, it's over. Too fast. In the auditorium, everyone stared blankly at the scene in the arena. The huge mammoth that had previously covered the sky has been wiped out. Only Zebra's tall figure stood. It turns out that the sound can be so scary. Sanji silently took out a cigarette again, the one just now had been burned out. So, how do you feel? Chen asked with a light smile. Very strong, Sanji shrugged. This is not in dispute. Several other people around also nodded in agreement. By the way, you said earlier that the last one is not one of the 4 Uranus of Gourmet. Sanji suddenly thought of something and asked. That's right, Chen nodded. This one is from a different world than the previous 3. A different world. Sanji frowned slightly. Not only that, Chen added. He's not even a chef, and he doesn't even have anything to do with chefs. Food for Uranus, the main job is a food hunter. But anyway, I can still have a relationship with the chef, and ordinary food can also be cooked. But the last one is a pure combatant. Snapped. With the snap of fingers, everything in the arena was reset. In the center of the venue, a new figure appeared. This figure is not tall. Compared with Zebra, who played in front, it can even be said to be thin. The iconic watermelon head and thick eyebrows, as well as a green tights battle suit. No matter how you look at it, its force is far from the previous ones. But from the appearance of aura, there is nothing comparable at all. This is the 4th template you picked out? Usopp asked blankly. That's right, Chen nodded calmly. Even him, there is nothing more suitable than him. Might Guy, Chen introduced, Konoha's arrogant blue beast, a pure physique expert. But this person, can he really compare with the first 3? Nami's face was full of disbelief, as the difference in aura too big. Luffy grinned. Hey, this uncle's eyebrows look so funny. Zoro held the knife with a calm expression. Whether it is strong or not, we cannot easily make a conclusion. Sanji let out a puff of smoke and shook his head. Let's take a look at it first. Although he said that, in his heart, he had basically begun to prefer Aru and Zebra. Zebra is strong. Alu may be weaker, but his beliefs and personality fit him quite well. And both of them have gourmet cells. Who doesn't want to get stronger while enjoying delicious food? However, this time, Chen didn't snap his fingers directly, but said, he is different. If he wants to use his true power, he will pay a certain price. So, there is one point I want to make in advance. With that said, he turned his head to look at Sanji. Before choosing him, you must think carefully. Sanji was stunned. When he was about to answer, Chen snapped his fingers. Then, let's start. Snapped. The paused time in the arena begins to elapse normally. Boom. As always, a mammoth giant, the size of a mountain, descended from the sky. Just by weight alone, a large area of the ground has been crushed. The wild and savage atmosphere instantly covered the entire arena. Oh, Might Guy was startled, took a few steps back, and looked up at the giant beast carefully. It's so big, bigger than a tailed beast, how did you grow so big? Quote. Yan. What responded to him was a huge elephant groan. Hoo hoo. The wind howled, and the huge elephant feet like Optimus Prime stepped on it violently, crushing the little green ant. It's such a violent character. Guy shrugged, stepped on his feet, and ran out of the range of the elephant's foot in an instant. He estimated the size difference. Tisk, it's hard to knock down such a big beast directly, so that's fine. Saying that, he put his hands on the ground. Open the door, open. Shut the door, open. The life door, open. Boom. The airflow erupted and swept away towards the surroundings, sweeping the dust into the distance. A terrifying flow of chakra surrounded his body. There were cracks in the ground, as if it could not bear the weight of this thin man. What is that? In the audience, everyone's eyes were about to pop out. As if in an instant, the image of that funny middle-aged uncle suddenly turned into a real strong image. The terrifying breath spread out, and they could feel it even if they were far away. 8 inner gates, Chen explained lightly, a secret technique to tap the potential of the human body, but it is not something that ordinary people can practice. There is an 8 gate in the human body, and each time you open a gate, you can gain several times the power of the previous one. But at the same time, it's also very taxing on the body. A little carelessness can cause injury to yourself. Only a strong physicist like Guy can exert the effect of this secret technique to the ultimate. Gaining power always comes at a price. The strength of Guy is that he can even open the first few doors without injury. This is his true strength. Boom. Earth cracks. Guy's figure has disappeared in place, turned into a green light, and swept towards the giant elephant in the distance. Exciting Konoha King Kong Power Whirlwind. The azure blue chakra was attached to his feet, and a roundabout kick like a martial arts kick slammed into the giant elephant's body. Bam! The extremely dull collision sound resounded through the arena. The giant groaned in pain. This kick even made it a little unstable. Guy stepped on it directly, and suddenly burst into air again. Injury door, open. Dooman, open. Boom. A more violent air flow set off. The terrifying chakra flow is even close to materializing. Chapter 56 8 Gate. The peacock in the morning, the tiger in the day, the elephant in the evening. 5th gate. Guy's figure is so close that he can't see it clearly with the naked eye. Shifting shadows on the giant elephant, constantly changing places to attack. Konoha bad rock rises. Leaf hurricane. Leaf strong whirlwind. Quote. One after another attack that was enough to open the mountain and crack the rocks, constantly smashed down on the giant elephant. The skin on its surface is constantly sunken with deep pits, and the horrific sound of bone cracking is endless. What's more puzzling is that since Guy moves directly on its body, it can only rely on its trunk and tail to drive away. It's a pity that Guy's speed is too exaggerated, and it simply can't keep up. Jingmun, open. Suddenly, Guy stood on the back of the elephant and broke through the 6th gate. CC. Green steam rose from him. Chakra materialized directly and became a coat. Guy roared with a ferocious look. I hit. The fist slammed, and the terrifying power made the giant elephant start to tremble and scream. For a time, all the surrounding air was driven. One after another flames burned up, all over the air. In just the blink of an eye, the flames in the sky have shown the vision of a peacock opening its screen. Toward the peacock, Chen explained dutifully in the audience. Hit a high-speed positive punch and air friction to generate flames, and use the shock waves and flames formed by hitting the air to cause continuous blows to the opponent. The flames created by the high-speed attack create a peacock-like opening in the air. This formula can only be used after opening the 6th gate. The power is not without fear. Anyway, everyone in the audience at this time even faintly smelled the aroma of barbecue. That was the result of the intense high-temperature flames scorching the back of the giant elephant. Luffy sniffed hard, the corners of his mouth almost drooling. It smells so good. Nami punched the top of his head. What time is this? You still want to eat? Sanji took a deep breath. His expression changed from inattentive at the beginning, to more and more solemn, so strong. This 4th option, which he didn't pay attention to originally, is now increasing in weight in his heart. The name Might Guy is also more and more impressive. Boom. In the arena, the giant elephant was finally overwhelmed, and the huge elephant's feet bent and knelt down, fracturing the ground. Guy still didn't stop slamming, and the flames continued between the two swings. Shocking door, open. With his loud roar, the terrifying chakra overflowed frantically, almost distorting the air. A burst of blue steam rose from him. That's the effect of evaporating sweat from the body mixed with chakra. Then, a seemingly unremarkable fist threw a straight punch forward. Boom. In midair, the air was smashed like a balloon. Countless airflows forcibly formed a huge tiger head. The terrifying air cannon smashed down on the giant elephant. Yan. Elephant groaning was full of grief, as if he had foreseen his own end. In the audience, Day Tiger, Chen said lightly. Do a bit of a focused, ultra-high-speed punch to the opponent, compressing the air first and then spreading it in one breath, forming an air cannon in the shape of a tiger. The shock wave that spread was enough to knock people down from miles away. This is an advanced physical technique that can only be used after the 7th gate is opened. In fact, Guy had been able to take down the giant elephant long before. It's just that in order to fully display his strength, Chen makes this illusion continue to display stronger power. So it is. Dead door. Open. A shocking roar resounded in the arena. Boom. A large amount of blood-colored steam rose in the air. This time, it is no longer sweat that evaporates, but blood. Therefore, the color of the steam also turned bloody accordingly. In the air, there was a constant whistling sound, like a terrifying wailing from the abyss of purgatory. It seems that even this space is no longer able to bear the power of this man. Saw. The sound of breaking through the air kept resounding, and Guy carried blood-colored steam through the air again. The stature appeared in several directions almost at the same time. This is an afterimage phenomenon as fast as ultimate, which is a deception to the vision. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying air wave was shot out, covering the giant elephant. Without any room for struggle, its entire body suffered a devastating blow. Everyone in the audience almost forgot to breathe. Exaggerated. It can't be called human anymore. This is a blue beast, it's clearly a blood-red beast. Every blow seemed to hit their hearts directly. The impact of this picture is enough to make people's mind go blank. Shixiang, Chen said calmly, generates a powerful air cannon by hitting the air. This is a terrible body art that can only be used after opening the 8th gate. Guy once punched 6 paths Madara in the horns on the head and threw him up to the point of vomiting blood. Call. As if there was a gust of wind blowing. In the arena, Guy finally stopped and fell to the ground. The blood-colored steam that surrounds him is particularly eye-catching. He slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, and then his eyes suddenly condensed. Boom. In an instant, the majestic chakra erupted. The surrounding air flowed forward in a circle of yearning. It was as if all the chi in the world was focused on him. A terrifying breath of horror to ultimate lingered on everyone's mind. A burst of enlightenment rose in everyone's heart. The next blow will be earth-shattering. This man is burning his own life. Clouds of blood-colored steam continued to condense in midair. In the end, a blood-colored dragon was formed. Might Guy. Guy raised his head sharply. Come on. Chapter 57 Night Guy. Do you still think you don't need to get stronger? Night Guy. In the auditorium, Chen's eyes were rarely serious. This is Guy's ultimate meaning, and it is powerful enough to distort space. This trick, directly named after Guy's name, is enough to show its status. Burn up all your life, and then burst out the most dazzling fireworks. Even 6 paths Madara was kicked in half. If it weren't for the particularity of the dirty soil, the finale would have been immediately advanced. Beside him, Usopp and the others were speechless, just subconsciously staring at the bloody figure in the arena. Or, they were just too shocked to know what to say. Boom. Suddenly, Guy moved. The earth cracked inch by inch, and the airwaves even formed a hurricane, blowing away in all directions. A blood-colored dragon passed through the arena and rammed toward the giant elephant. Vaguely, you can even see that the space has fallen into a distorted state. This blow, destroying mountains and mountains, is shocking. The entire giant elephant, along with the surrounding earth, rocks, air, etc., were all annihilated one by one. Kakaka. The space let out an overwhelmed groan. Destruction, destruction, destruction. Everything, under this kick, seemed vulnerable. There is no fire, but in the eyes of everyone, the impact of this kick is unparalleled. Snapped. Fingers snapped, and the picture in the arena froze. As if someone pressed the pause button on the remote. So, how do you feel? Chen turned his head and looked at Sanji beside him. Have you decided who to choose? Sanji was silent for a while, staring at the arena, and slowly exhaled a white smoke. Actually, I should choose a Chen chuckled. Usually this sentence is followed by a, but. Sanji shrugged. But, my heart tells me that I should choose the last one. Are you sure? Chen said calmly. I said, his power comes at a price. 8 inner gates, is not a simple fighting skill. That is a secret technique that taps the user's potential and even burns the user's life. I'm sure. Sanji laughed, his eyes gradually firming. With this power, I should be able to reach, all blue, right? Yes, Chen nodded. The premise is that you have to pass my training plan first. Then, this time, the choice of power is over. After saying that, he snapped his fingers lightly. Snapped. For a time, the arena illusion screen shattered, and everyone's eyes suddenly darkened. Only Chen shouted from the bottom of his heart. System, customize, train Sanji, open the 3rd gate in front of 8 inner gates, and learn Guy's basic physique. The former 3rd gate of 8 inner gates has a much lighter load than the latter 5th gate. When Xiao Li was in the Chunin exam, when he opened the 3rd gate student gate, it didn't actually have much side effects. It wasn't until he reached the 5th gate that his muscles and meridians were torn, and he almost became a crippled person. Open black lens bracket ding. A training plan has been drawn up. Close black lens bracket. Training object. Vinsmoke Sanji. Close black lens bracket. Training goal. Learn Guy's basic physical skills and secret skills, 8 inner gates, and open the former 3rd gate. Close black lens bracket. Training plan. To hone physical fitness, complete 10,000 squats and 10,000 frog leaps every day for 60 days. Close black lens bracket. Going merry, on deck. After everyone felt that the world was spinning, they finally came back to their senses. The sun shone evenly, the seabirds on the far horizon continued to flap their wings, and the sound of the waves came to my ears again. Sanji silently took out a cigarette and lit it before asking, "Tell me, what is the training plan?" In his eyes, a flame called fighting spirit is rising. Experienced this fantasy, he finally understood why Zoro and Usopp were working out and digging through ammo. Because of that power, it's worth it. Your training plan is very simple, Chen said indifferently, holding his arms and leaning on the side of the boat. Exercise physical fitness, 10,000 squats and 10,000 frog leaps every day. Huh, Sanji was stunned, a little stunned. 10,000 frog leaps, 10,000 squats. And regardless of whether you are tired or not, even if his physique is strong, he can keep doing it over and over again. But just finishing this set of exercises will take at least half a day, right? You heard right, Chen's mouth raised a smile. You know, that man called my guy is always exercising. Although people in the pirate world are generally strong in physique. But there is still a need for some exercise. This is not only a tempering of the physique, but also a tempering of the will. Just like fitness, many people who fail in fitness are not because their body does not allow it. It's simply because my will is not strong enough. Quote. Sanji was silent for a while, and then nodded firmly. I see, isn't it just 10,000 squats and 10,000 frog leaps? HMPH, it's just a trivial idea. At this moment, Joseph on the bow suddenly shouted. Boss, we are almost there, Kokoja village. Oh, it's quite fast. Zoro raised his eyebrows unexpectedly, holding the knife. Usopp also ran to the bow and looked forward. Wow, Nami, your hometown is very beautiful. This is indeed a beautiful island. But Nami was standing behind, clutching the wanted notice with Arlong's face in his hand, and said nothing. She is like those candidates who are about to take a major exam, with anxiety and anticipation in her eyes. Now, do you still think you don't need to get stronger? A voice rang out in her ear. Nami's eyes widened and he turned to look, only to find that Chen was looking at her meaningfully. In this sea, how can there be no need for strength? Chapter 58. The evil dragon is exterminated. As early as when Chen customized a training plan for Zoro. I asked Nami together, but her answer at the time was, as a navigator, you don't need to become stronger. Nami opened his mouth. Moo. At this moment, a huge bull roar came from the sea. The sound of the water was swift, and a huge bull's head rushed out of the sea. Oh, Zoro's eyes suddenly sharpened, and he put his hand on the hilt. Sea Kings. 35. He hasn't forgotten that his training mission is to fight a large Sea Kings. But soon, he shook his head in disappointment. No, it's too small. 95. Chen, who was talking to Nami originally, also looked over and raised his eyebrows. What about small Sea Kings? Well, that's right, you'll lead the way. As he spoke, a touch of scarlet blood lingered in his eyes. Huge pupil power poured out. The Mangekyo Sharingan is invincible when it comes to controlling such large creatures. After all, even the existence of the tailed beast is difficult to break free. Moo. 35. The next moment, a strange blood-colored pattern appeared in the huge eyes of the giant manatee, and it was slowly spinning. Chen calmly ordered, lead the way and rush into Arlong Paradise. The so-called Arlong Paradise is the residence of the evil dragon pirates in Kokoja village. It is also the goal of their trip. Moo. With a response, the giant manatee turned its head on the spot and rushed towards the direction of Kokoja village. Everyone on the deck was shocked. No matter how many times I watch it, I still think that Chen's ability is so strange. 99. Is this the time to talk about this? Chen said helplessly, hurry up and follow. 35. Yes, Joseph and Johnny hurried to control the boat. Soon, Going Merry followed behind the giant manatee and rushed all the way into a bay. And this bay is located in the Arlong Paradise. At this time, in Arlong Paradise, Arlong, with a serrated nose, was drinking tea with Colonel Marine, who wore a kabuto hat and looked like a rat. Around the two of them, there were Murlocs with different looks, all of whom were officials of the evil dragon pirates. Arlong handed over a bag of money. Take care of me this year, Colonel Mouse. Of course, you are my partner. Colonel Mouse took the purse proudly. At this time, crash, a violent sound of water flow came from the bay not far from the two of them. What's going on? Arlong narrowed his eyes. Moo. The high-pitched cow roar resounded, and the giant manatee rushed out of the sea. Following closely behind, Going Merry also rushed into the bay. Who? Arlong stood up abruptly. Oh who? 35 Usopp's voice came from the bow. Here. Those Murlocs are the evil dragon pirates, right? Sanji spit out a smoke ring. Miss Nami, don't worry, I will definitely help you deal with them. The group suddenly jumped off the boat. I thought it was something. Arlong stood there with a sneer on his face. It turned out to be some lowly humans, shrimp ha 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 ha. He glanced at these people, locked his eyes on Nami among them, and said with a smile, oh, Nami, you are back, are these people the gifts you brought me? 5. Nami's expression turned cold for a moment. Arlong, I have found my true partner. Shrimp ha ha ha. Arlong burst into laughter. Are you joking? With these lowly humans? It's useless to talk too much. Chen glanced at the opposite side lightly, and said, Luffy, let's go together, these Murlocs are all handed over to you. 5. Master Luffy in the second gear, Zoro who has been exercising all the time. There are also Usopp with much improved ammo. Their combat power is already much stronger than their own at the same period in the original track. It's easy enough to deal with the dragon pirates. Woohoo! Luffy nodded confidently, and immediately his feet compressed and flew out like a spring. Tisk, trouble, Zoro walked forward with his knife in hand. In the back, Sanji, Usopp, and even Johnny, Joseph and others quickly followed. Miss Nami's enemy is my enemy. Dare to bully Sister Nami, I won't agree. Everyone. With tears in his eyes, Nami also gritted his teeth and took out a wooden stick, and rushed up. A war begins. The other side. Colonel Mouse walked out on tiptoe. Where do you want to go? Colonel, a voice came from the front. Who? Colonel Mouse raised his head quickly. I saw a young man in black leaning lazily against the railing, as if waiting for him. You, what do you want to do? Colonel Mouse's expression was very flustered. First I'm Colonel Marine. I know, Chen nodded knowingly. A Marine who works with pirates is quite interesting. What nonsense are you talking about? Colonel Mouse raised his gun. Get out of the way, or I'll be rude. 99. Before you say that, it's better to hide the money you just collected. Chen looked at his chest. There, a purse was looming. Damn, Colonel 35 Mouse's face sank, and he pulled the trigger without hesitation. Boom. The bullet swirled and flew out, passing directly through Chen's body. How is it possible? Colonel Mouse's eyes widened suddenly. Snapped. A hand pressed directly on his head. Chen looked leisurely. I said I want to help Nami, and naturally I have to solve this scourge together with you. When he let go, Colonel Mouse had completely fainted. On his head, 5 deep fingerprints stand out. Then, it should be over soon. Chen looked back and looked in the direction of paradise. Just as he expected, the battle between Luffy et al. And Arlong et al. Ended quickly. Especially when Luffy is in second gear. Arlong's supposedly indestructible jagged nose was bent with one punch. Great, the evil dragon pirates are really defeated. At this moment, cheers from the villagers came from outside the park. Obviously, the movement of this battle is not small, attracting many villagers. Nami opened the gates of the park and announced loudly to the villagers. The big pirate, Arlong, who offered a reward of 20 million Baileys, has been dealt with. From now on, the evil dragon pirates will never appear again. For a time, the entire Kokoja village was in a carnival. At the same time, the news of what happened in East Blue has also been transmitted back to naval headquarters. Marineford, in a conference room. A meeting about the Straw Hat Pirates is being held. Presided over this meeting is a headquarters rear admiral. This group of people is no longer something the branch can deal with. Rear Admiral posted the wanted notices on the blackboard. Clown Buggy, 15 million Baileys. Admiral Crick, 17 million Baileys. Dragon Pirates, Arlong, 20 million Baileys. Rear Admiral's voice was calm. In East Blue, where the average reward is only 3 million, these people are undoubtedly big pirates, but they have all been defeated by that group of people. Backquote. In addition to the captain, there is one person who needs special attention. 99. Rear Admiral pointed to a photo of a young man in black. This man is the cadre of the Straw Hat Pirates and is very dangerous. 35. So this time, even if it's just the first bounty, we have given a very high bounty. The signs of evil must be completely stifled. For a time, everyone in the conference room looked solemn. Subsequently, a new reward and wanted notice was posted all over the world. In the original track, only Luffy's wanted list was at this time, and the others were not on the list. But this time, there was one more. Straw Hat Pirates, Captain, Luffy, bounty, 30 million Bailey. Straw Hat Pirates, Officer, Chen, bounty, 28 million Bailey. The two wanted orders instantly spread across the sea. This also means that the entire Straw Hat Pirates have begun to enter the eyes of some big men. In Zyrob village, Miss Kaya looked at the wanted warrant in her hand with surprise. The owner of the sea restaurant Barati, Jep, posted the wanted notice directly in his restaurant. In Windmill Village, the villagers even had a party to celebrate. An unnamed desert island, Chloe, who was wearing a black suit, also saw these two wanted notices and pushed his glasses with his palm. Sir, don't worry, I'm almost done with the training mission. In his eyes, blood-colored monster patterns faintly emerged. The other side. After a short rest in Kokoja village, the Golden Melly also embarked on a journey, Wang Jiao again. Joseph and Johnny stayed in the village. After all, the goal of the two of them is not the Grand Line itself. Woo. Luffy held a wanted notice in his hand and jumped up and down on the deck excitedly. Zoro stroked his forehead. He said, a full 30 million Bailey, famous. Sanji was unhappy with a cigarette. Damn it, why are only Luffy and Chen on the list? Usopp Akimbo laughed. Where, in Luffy's picture, I'm also on the list. Although it's just the back of the head in a corner. Am I also on the list? Chen looked at the wanted warrant in his hand with surprise. It seemed that he had caught the attention of some in Marine. After all, even Captain Luffy's bounty is only 30 million. In no pirate group, the bounty of the cadre is so close to the bounty of the captain. He is already a special case. Well, none of this matters. 35. Chen calmly put down the arrest warrant and turned to look at Nami not far away. You seem to have something to say to me. Nami hesitated for a while, but said, I also want to become stronger. After speaking, she also bowed. Please. Chapter 59 The electric light that dances at your fingertips is my unchanging belief in this life. In fact, on this ship, Nami was left with no training plan. The others, Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, Sanji, all found the strength to chase after themselves. Being stronger. Chen smiled unsurprisingly. For a time, several other people on the deck also turned their attention. Sanji said while squatting, Miss Nami, I will always protect you. It doesn't matter if you don't get stronger. Usopp put away the new ammunition he had just made, and also echoed. That's right, if you are a navigator, you don't need to get stronger. Each member of the pirate group will have a clear position. Such as combatants, snipers, cooks, navigators, helmsmen and so on. The navigator's job is to guide the direction of the ship. Sanji is still just a chef, Nami countered. Saying that, her eyes dimmed. Chen is right, in this sea, there is no one who does not need strength. 35. If only she had power in the first place. Kokoja village will not be occupied by Arlong for so many years. Her adoptive mother, Belle Mere, will not die. This sea is cruel, and the main theme is always the strong prey on the weak. The weak, let alone against the strong. It may just be affected by the battle between the powerhouses, and they will easily lose their lives. Therefore, strength is always the main theme of this sea. For a while, Zoro and the others were all silent. Each of them had different dreams when they got on the boat. But no matter what their dreams are, they ultimately need strength to support them. Since you have already decided, then prepare to choose strength. Chen leaned on the side of the boat and said lightly. Nami glanced at him curiously. What kind of template did you prepare for me? A few people on the ship, except Luffy, everyone will enter the fantasy world to watch the battle. Then choose the power that fits with you. Of course she is no exception. To be honest, I had a headache before. Chen spread his hands helplessly. After all, you are different from them. They all have their own basic fighting styles, and you are not a fighting member in the first place. Zoro is a swordsman, Sanji is good at kicking, and Usopp is good at ranged attacks. Not to mention Luffy, who comes with a plug-in card fruit. And Nami is different, she has no fighting style that she is good at. Although she will use some special weapons like weather sticks in the future, it is difficult to classify that kind of thing. Therefore, choosing the power suitable for Nami is a headache for Chen. Nami twisted her hair in embarrassment. Actually, no matter what kind of power, it's a big improvement for me. 99. The powerhouses I saw in the previous illusions were all exaggerated. Well, I also picked 4 templates for the time being, Chen said with a light smile. All in all, let's read it first. Snapped. With the snap of your fingers, the world changed. The sky and the earth are reversed, and the space is reconstructed. When everyone came back to their senses, they had already reappeared in the familiar large-scale arena. Oh, Luffy jumped from the spot. I'm free to speak again. By the way, Luffy seemed to suddenly think of something, turned his head and shouted. Chen, can you open more illusions at ordinary times? 99. Only in this illusion can he release the seal on his mouth. My illusion is not used for this kind of thing, Chen glanced at him angrily. Saying that, he looked at Nami. Old rules, 4 templates, tell me your choice after reading it. I see, Nami took a deep breath and looked straight ahead. Sanji on the side quickly said, no matter what Miss Nami chooses, I will support it. Zoro folded his arms, as long as it is strong. Snapped. With the snap of his fingers, a small figure appeared out of thin air in the center of the arena. This is a girl with short brown hair and the same brown eyes. A standard high school uniform. However, it doesn't look like a character good at fighting. Usopp stared blankly. Huh, Luffy also blinked, isn't this a child? Zoro's mouth twitched slightly. This. He really can't see the demeanor of a strong man. On the other hand, Sanji, frowning with a tangled face, murmured in a low voice. Is this a child, obviously such a beautiful girl. Nami punched Sanji directly in the face. That's what you thought. 35. Chen shook his head. How many times have I said that? A person's strength cannot be reflected by appearance alone. Guy is a good example. Before the outbreak, he was the image of a watermelon head. But after the outbreak, he became the well-known Guy Emperor. Masaka Makoto, Chen introduced. One of only 7 superpowers in Academy City, the strongest, electric shocker, capable of manipulating billions of volts of high-voltage current, electromagnetic waves, and magnetism at will. 5. In terms of strength, this one may not be the strongest. But in terms of popularity, it is invincible. The phrase, the electric light that dances on your fingertips is my unchanging belief in this life. I don't know how many places have been swiped. Of course, Chen chose her for another important reason. That is the identity of the electric shocker. When Nami uses the weather rod and thundercloud Zeus in the later stage. It is also a sense of controlling lightning, and the degree of fit between the two should not be low. Chen raised his hand. All in all, let's take a look first. 39. Snapped. With the snap of his fingers, the scene of the arena that had been suspended suddenly came to life. Drip drip. The rapid mechanical sound resounded in the field. A silver-white circular mechanical fortress suddenly descended out of thin air. The steel skin glows with a cold, cold light, showing its sturdiness. On the outer layer of the fort, there are ferocious muzzles of different sizes. No one can doubt how terrifyingly destructive it is. In the auditorium, everyone, a cad, was dumbfounded. What is this? This thing doesn't look like a living thing. Or, how to fight this kind of thing. This is the opponent I specially selected. Chen folded his hands and smiled lightly. It took a lot of thought. This thing, but he designed it himself. From the firepower system to the defense system, they are all conceived by themselves. In the arena, 33 Masaka Makoto looked at the mechanical fortress and tilted his head. A new type of robot. DD. Enemy detected. A mechanical sound came from the silver-white mechanical fortress. It is locked. The firepower system is on. 5. Bang bang. There was a sound of gold and iron colliding. In the ferocious muzzles on the surface of the mechanical fortress, there is a gleaming white light condensing. Masaka Makoto frowned. Are you going to fight? Boom. Without warning, blazing white lasers blasted out from the mechanical fortress. The terrifying heat made the air seem to be scorched, and there was a burning smell. Iron sand. Masaka Makoto opened his hands, and an invisible force spread. The ground around 100 meters suddenly cracked, and grains of dark iron sand rushed out, forming a shield in front of her. Che Lala. The laser hits. The large shield of iron sand continued to melt, and was replenished by the newly gathered iron sand. The entire shield was burned directly from black to red. The hot molten iron fell to the ground, dripping out of potholes. HMPH. Masaka Makoto raised his head proudly. If that's the case, don't blame me for being rude. Ding one by one. A crisp sound echoed in the air. A small coin was tossed by her. Go. Boom. Layers of air waves were pushed around, rolling up the dust on the ground. The coin slid forward at an unbelievably terrifying speed. A dazzling orange track was left in the air. The high-intensity wind pressure produced bursts of whimpering. This blow is even more dazzling than the laser cannon fired by the mechanical fortress. Across the space, the coin slammed down on the mechanical fortress with huge kinetic energy. DD. A huge kinetic energy strike is detected, and the defense system is activated. At the critical moment, the surface of the mechanical fortress shrunk again. When a violent symphony of gold and iron resounded in the air. The entire huge mechanical fortress was forcibly pushed back all the way. On the surface of its special stainless steel structure, a large pit is very conspicuous. Gollum. In the audience, Usopp couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva, his eyes straightened. Okay, it's amazing. That girl, no, judging from her level of flatness, she should be a little girl. How could such a terrifying attack break out with just one coin? Both sides are very strong. Zoro's eyes were solemn. The blow just now may have been pierced by Sea Kings, but the big guy was obviously not hit hard. The blow from the brown short-haired girl, if it was replaced by other people present except Chen, it would be difficult to escape. Super electromagnetic cannon, Chen explained lightly. Using electromagnetic induction, the coin is sent out at 3 times the speed of sound. Use its own electromagnetic force to correct the flight trajectory and accelerate the coin, so that it continues to accelerate during its travel. The final power will naturally be very exaggerated. Because speed and power are often proportional. When the speed is older and faster, the energy it carries will skyrocket exponentially. So a move from a small coin can be called a super electromagnetic gun. In the arena, Masaka Makoto's offensive didn't end there. One after another blue and white high-voltage currents kept gathering in her hands. In the end, a thunderbolt spear was formed. Are you ready for my wrath? 99. Chapter 60. The Crumb Witch is coming. Elemental washing. One person becomes an army. Lightning gun. In the audience, Chen dutifully explained. This is a blue-white light gun formed by a powerful current of 1 billion volts. In front of this move, distance is almost meaningless. How fast is lightning? This blow, from the moment it is displayed, basically means a hit. Boom. In the arena, a sonic boom resounded through the sky. Everyone could only see a white light passing through the air, leaving an afterimage on the retina. In the air, there is a faint smell of anxiety. This is a man-made thunder. Kakaka. In the distance, the silver-white mechanical fortress was directly knocked to the ground by this blow. The spherical structure rolled on the ground several times. Remnants of electric snakes jumped on the surface of the fortress. Drip drip drip. Eager electronic prompts continued to resound in the fortress, but there was no further explanation. It seems that its system center has been disturbed in some way, and it is no longer able to fight according to the program. Although there seems to be no problem with the body parts. But obviously the combat capability has been weakened by most. In the audience, Usopp said strangely, "Is this broken?" Sanji on the side also took a breath and said slowly, "It feels like 35. This kind of precision instrument, once there is a problem with one of the core components, it is easy to damage the whole. For example, in a clock, when one of the gears is damaged, it can basically be considered for repair." Chen on the side raised his eyebrows. "It shouldn't be. The mechanical fortress I designed has a certain self-healing ability." Before his words were finished, the arena changed and regenerated. Boom. The white clouds in the sky have become dark and gloomy at some point. Huge razors walked through the dark clouds. On the ground, Masaka Makoto pointed to the sky, as if calling for something. Well, Chen's mouth twitched slightly. This blow will really damage it. He already knew what the brown-haired girl in the field was doing. Come. Accompanied by the girl's squeak. Countless razors in the sky converged in one place. DDD. Turn on the defense system to maximize. Vaguely, you can still hear the dying struggle of the mechanical fortress. Boom. A silver thunder column smashed down from the sky, shrouding the mechanical fortress. At this moment, the whole world turned white. This is the mighty force from heaven and earth, like the punishment from the god of thunder. Everyone in the audience couldn't help covering their eyes. This thunder is too dazzling. When they saw the situation in the arena again, only the broken parts on the ground remained. On the parts, there is also a continuous jumping current. Real lightning. Chen shook his head and said, by gathering thunderclouds, lightning between the clouds and the ground is generated. Saying that, he snapped his fingers. The picture in the arena suddenly froze. The battle ended quickly. Masaka Makoto's ability has a considerable restraint on mechanical creations. The lightning directly damaged the internal structure of the mechanical fortress. If the opponent changes to another person, it may not be so easy to win. So, how do you feel? Chen turned to look at Nami beside him and asked. It feels. Nami blinked, as if there was still an afterimage of the thunder just now. It's very strong. She nodded firmly and said, very strong. I don't think there is any problem in choosing her directly. In the beginning, when Masaka Makoto appeared, even her, it is inevitable that some want to complain. Because it is clearly a child. But the next battle undoubtedly subverted everyone's opinion. Thunder runs through the sky. But it's not just the thunder. Such as the railgun that the small coin hit. That is clearly a powerful control of the magnetic force. For Nami, who has no fighting ability right now, this power is undoubtedly exceedingly powerful. Zoro, who was not far away, also exhaled a long breath. It's really strong, I'm wrong. Sanji took a breath. Compared to this, I am more concerned about the age of that beautiful girl. Hey, Chen, how old is she? Bam. Before Chen could reply, Sanji had already been knocked down on the seat by Nami. Well, let's read the rest first. Chen slapped his mouth. In the back, maybe there will be a template that suits you. Okay. Nami nodded slightly. It is also a good thing for her to see more powerful people from Otherworld. Snapped. As the fingers snapped, the screen in the arena suddenly reset. The iron sand all over the ground, the pitch-black ground struck by lightning, the potholes scalded by molten iron, etc. were smoothed out one by one. Instead, there was a petite figure standing quietly. He has long gray hair, blue eyes, a black robe, and a yellow bow tied on his chest. Witch of Ash, Irena, Chen said indifferently. A magical genius who obtained the title of the highest witch among magicians at the age of 15. 99. Of course, she also has a familiar name, the Crumb Witch. In fact, she only looks black-bellied on the surface, but she has a very kind heart. Okay. Sanji on the ground struggled to get up, with a big bag on his head, but that still couldn't stop his eyes from coming out of Peach Heart. What a lovely girl. Nami's forehead showed a tic-tac-toe-shaped vein. UB**********D, there is no help. On the other hand, Zoro caught the point. Magic. Usopp scratched his head. Looks like, powerful. Although he didn't know what the title of which was, he knew that the three words, highest position, usually represented power. This time, no one complained about the strength or weakness anymore. After experiencing the battle of Masaka Makoto just now, everyone has understood that everything has to be said directly based on strength. Even a child may have a powerful strength far beyond imagination. The so-called magic, usually the above explanation is, making the impossible possible. The corner of Chen's mouth raised a smile. For example, she can perform elemental attacks such as wind, fire, thunder, and electricity by herself. Everyone's eyes widened. All. In the pirate world, people's ability generally comes from their respective devil fruit. Each devil fruit corresponds to a different ability. Such as Mera fruit, which can perform fire elemental attacks. Frozen fruit can cast ice elemental attack. But the magician in front of him can use almost all the elements of the whole system. All in all, let's take a look first. Chen snapped his fingers. In the arena, Kakaka, the silver-white mechanical fortress descended out of thin air again. On the streamlined metal shell, there is a cold light. 0. Ask for flowers. Irena blinked, looking at the monster in front of her curiously. What is this, a new monster? 99. A burst of electronic sound came from the mechanical fortress. DDDD. Enemy detected, the attack system has been activated, and the target has been locked. In the ferocious muzzles, particles of light are constantly gathering. The hot breath instantly distorted the air. Are you going to attack me? Irena paused. Boom. 55. The next moment, the laser penetrated the air, and the entire arena was illuminated. Ice wall. On the ground, a huge and thick ice wall suddenly stood up. The laser slammed into the ice wall, instantly melting a large piece of ice. Really? Why do I have to fight? Irena complained, but she continued to wave her hand, condensing magic elements. Her little face bulged and she shouted in dissatisfaction, I'm angry. 9. Magic circles of different colors continued to emerge from her hands. Countless elements have been hooked. Chain. Bang bang bang. A chain of steel chains suddenly condensed, sealing the mechanical fortress in place. As if unhappy, Irena had no plans to stop. Magic bullet, hotline, wind blade, rock rain, thunder gun, fire column, ice bullet, 39. For a time, countless elements condensed in the air. The entire arena seems to be filled with these elemental attacks. This gray-haired girl looked like a machine gun incarnate. Attacks from the sky fell from all directions. Boom. The sound of explosions is incessant. The area where the mechanical fortress was located was completely enveloped by the attack, the bottom surface was broken, and the earth and rocks were flying. Smoke and dust rose from the sky, obscuring the sight. Everyone could only see the continuous smashing of elemental attacks. Ice, thunder, water, fire, earth. Of course, faintly, you can still hear the electronic sound of the mechanical fortress. Dee. Attack detected, defense system turned on. And this weak voice was gradually drowned out by the constant explosions. Magic wash. Endless elemental attacks seemed to have no end in sight. Gollum. In the audience, there was a sound of swallowing saliva. Usopp's expression stiffened. Who can handle this? 35. Horrible. The continuous elemental attacks fell as if they didn't want money. Even if he couldn't see the specific situation because of the smoke and dust, he could imagine the tragic situation of the mechanical fortress inside. Simply brutal. Nami is also full of emotion. It's amazing. This is the same as the one just now. She is obviously a young girl, but her fighting power is amazing. And in terms of visual effects alone, the impact of this one is obviously more exaggerated. The magic that fills the sky does not give people any room to fight back. That's why magicians are called masters, in many worlds. Chen looked at it calmly, because they themselves represent the word firepower. No army needed. One person can become an army.